haven't found the name of the chef, but not a word about what they were served. Not a word about what they were served.
Today, we are going into the Chicago Public Library's archives, locating information that will expose the tunnel systems located right under the city of Chicago. We know here on this channel that we are definitely not being told the full story regarding the tunnel systems all over the world, where they start off by telling us that the very first major tunnel project was dug under Lake Michigan to a water intake 2 miles out in 1864 to 1866. This is 29 years before the invention of the power tool. Digging massive tunnel systems under the lake, where it goes on to say that Chicago kept on digging away, creating thousands of miles of underground structures, where in my opinion, this is the beginning of the narrative for these tunnels that were created by the previous civilization. Thousands of miles of underground structures right underneath the city of Chicago, all according to public records in the Chicago Public Library. So let's go deeper. I was able to locate someone that has recently been inside the tunnel systems, and they shared what they saw with me. And now I'm going to share it all with you. We have seen these photos. They are on the internet, and here it is today. We can see that the railway is still there on the floor, looking exactly like we see in these photos that we are told is from pre-1906. Over 120 years ago, I was sent other photos that I think you will all want to see. These tracks lead throughout the entire tunnel system, using them as transportation throughout the entire city. We have shown in episode 42 how these tunnel systems are in every single city in the world, how they connect all of the buildings together underground. These buildings are bigger than we can see. There is so much more under our feet than we realized before, where we can see that this tunnel system leads right to the Chicago City Hall, a building that we were told was constructed in 1911. Of course, holding the fire story, where this is a nod, meaning one of three things, or a combination of them. In my opinion, of course, 1, it's letting them all know which building is from the old world. 2, where the catacombs are located. And or 3, where the tunnel systems are located. I believe it is a nod to these three things at this point. And we need to remember this for the future and keep track of what we continue to see throughout our research. They also tell us that there was a previous city hall. Now, it's very interesting that they tell us that these tunnels were constructed by the Chicago Tunnel Company. Great name. And their history begins by letting us know that there were initial tunnels. Initial tunnels. Are these not the tunnels that were found? You tell me. Especially when they go on to say that the city of Chicago had no idea what to do with these tunnels, granting the newly formed Illinois Telephone and Telegraph Company the rights to construct utility tunnels under the streets of Chicago in 1899. So 1899, they start making tunnels for phone lines. I thought we were told by the Chicago Public Library in their archives that they were digging thousands of miles of tunnels decades before this. That's right. We were told this. And the first telephone in Chicago didn't come until 1877. So what was Chicago doing digging tunnels for thousands of miles before the telephone? Because we know this wasn't the true purpose of these tunnels, and they are trying to push it off that they needed the tunnels for telephone cables in 1899, where we can see very clearly that the dates are beginning to collide, the very beginning of a massive narrative slip-up. So let's keep going. They continue on by saying that the initial plans for the tunnels called for filling them with phone cables, when we just showed that that is not true at all. This was not the initial plans for the tunnels. Not even close. We have found something massive, in my opinion. A massive lie. And here's where they're gonna try and explain why they have railways in all of these tunnels. When the city, of course, said no. You cannot use the manholes to get the cables into the tunnels. Of course they did. They say, yes, we need you to dig tunnels for our phones. But no, you can't use the manholes to actually get the cables down there. I'm gonna ask you, how ridiculous does that sound? Refusing to permit manholes through which cables could be unreeled into the tunnels. The plans were then changed, of course. Changed to include rails for hauling cable spools through the tunnels. Incredible. Where the city was largely unaware of the nature of tunneling. They didn't even know how big these tunnels were or where they went, saying they were unaware. Unbelievable. The clearest proof that we have ever been told on the tunnels, in my opinion. A huge sentence right there for our research. Can you see that these tunnels were constructed by the previous civilization now? Are you able to see the truth that a previous civilization was here, much closer to our timeline than what we have been told? And all of their work has been left behind for us to see, for us to uncover, where the first 16 miles of tunnels had to be excavated to remove earth carefully and systematically from an area in order to find buried remains. Now, we remember that the public library told us that there are thousands of miles of underground structures. Is this limited to just tunnels? Or is this another proof that there are buildings, structures, exactly like they say, right under our feet, underground? Thousands of miles of underground structures. What are we seeing today? I think we have unlocked something massive. I think they are very aware of what is under the ground at this point, and they were rediscovering it in the 18 and 1900s. And we are now following behind them right now. It's all out there. If you're able to read with open eyes, it clearly states that there are thousands of miles of underground structures right under the city of Chicago with maximum use of scarce real estate. Is this not exactly what we want to see? Is it not putting everything together for us? Connecting it all, showing that buildings are underground, real estate underground. Thousands of miles of underground structures right under the city of Chicago. We now know that this is here. It is no longer a question of if the previous civilization's work is underground. It's now a matter of just finding them and exposing them to everybody in the world. We now know that they are there. We have photos of inside the tunnels. We know that they lead to all of the buildings. Thousands of miles of tunnels, underground structures, underground real estate. We know that there are thousands of miles of tunnels. We were told this. Yet here in 1910, the system is only showing us 60 miles on the map. So we know that there's a lot of tunnels that are not being shown to us today. And we know that these tunnels connect to these buildings, and I'm gonna show that soon, including the city hall. It's so interesting to me that they leave this part of the story out every single time. We have never seen in any construction story that they connected the local tunnel to the building. We don't see that the city hall also has a tunnel system connected to it within the narrative. Yet we know that the city hall is 100% connected to this massive tunnel system. I have also located first-hand accounts of these tunnels where this individual worked at the Field Museum of Natural History in the late 1970s, where he explains that the building was a customer of the Chicago Tunnel Company, where the tunnel was connected via an elevator. And he explains that after all of the freight cars were abandoned, they were destroyed and scrapped, except for one, which remained in the Field Museum's sub-basement. A basement to the basement is what we are reading. This building is much bigger than we are told. Cut off from the rest of the tunnel system was a train from the past. The manager of the physical plant, Norman, took this individual down there, and he says it seemed at the time they would remain there forever. Well, no. They removed them in the late 1990s, of course. And then the Illinois Railway Museum took them over. Supposedly saved and are now preserved there, where you can read about them here. Here, meaning 404 page not found. So I would be shocked, personally, if they're still there today, just knowing what we know. For anyone that wants to check it out, it is located at 7000 Olson Road, Union, Illinois, right outside of a town called Marengo. Very interesting stuff. I would love to know if those carts are still there, or if they would tell us that they ever had them, and if they would have a further story about them. So this story continues on to say that on April 13th, 1992, what some have called the Chicago Flood began, where contractors accidentally disturbed the clay surrounding one of the freight tunnels. Of course they did. Do you think this was an accident? You gotta let me know in the comments. Where the leak wasn't taken seriously at first, where it turned into a breach near the Chicago River, with eventually hundreds of millions of gallons of water flowing into the tunnel system and into the sub-basements of many Chicago buildings. Again, I'm gonna ask, knowing what we know, do you think this was an accident? Or do you think this was a destruction project where a man named Bruce had his 15 minutes of fame because he was the only recognized expert on the tunnel system, where the great majority of people, of course, had no idea such a thing even existed? Where I think that 20 to 30 years later, now, we may be right back to that point, showing how fast people forget things, showing that the majority of people, yet again, need to be shown these tunnels and understand what is below their feet.
Now, by September, they had built a complete ramp. I'd like to see that happen today this fast. I'd like to see that happen today this fast. 40 feet of water, and there's another 2 floors below that, and there's another 2 floors below that. For me, it started back in high school and college, and one day the light bulb went off. Gee, my dad is the night supervisor at Marshall Fields. Maybe they have an opening. And they did. And they did. There's water in the Pittsfield building, and Marshall Fields, and the City Hall, and this place and that place. And we don't know where it's coming from. And I thought, I know. All those places had one thing in common. All older buildings, all older buildings, all older buildings, all older buildings that were connected to the freight tunnels still.
And a very interesting note here, down at the bottom of the article, where on September 1st, 2000, the Central Electric Railfans Association hosted a rare inspection tour of parts of the underground tunnel system. Unfortunately, we are told that this is not likely to be repeated anytime soon. On the wake of something that happened in 2001, there are now security concerns. The old tunnel system, a vital part of Chicago's infrastructure, a vital part of the old world, our true history, our true past, is now closed off from public access. Now, it is very possible that these tunnels were found, connecting the old world buildings together, connecting underground real estate, structures, as we were told, finding these tunnels, and then our civilization constructed their form of transportation throughout this system, with the railways being laid after finding these tunnels. This is a possibility, but in my opinion, there is one thing that is for sure, is that these tunnel systems, these structures that we are unable to see now, have been there for a very long time, much longer than we have been told. And they are still here from the previous civilization, a civilization that was here only a few hundred years ago, in my opinion. Using electric locomotives in the underground tunnel. Very interesting. Naming this the Great Chicago Tunnel from 1908. Do you live here in this area today? Here's a public map, the one that they are showing us, from 1915, of the Chicago tunnel system that sits right below your feet today. Remember, there are thousands of miles of tunnel systems in this city alone. So this is obviously not everything, not even close, but it does show that there is much more below our feet right now. With another map titled Chicago Freight Tunnel System, Underground Transportation. Zooming in, we can see that the public was allowed to know that they are 40 feet below the surface of Chicago.
40 feet of water, and there's another 2 floors below that. 40 feet of water, and there's another 2 floors below that.
And pass under the river 11 times, holding 734 intersections, 26 private connections. Very interesting. Probably more than that. What do you think? Going on to the back of this thing, where it tells us that many warehouses and stores have direct private connections with the tunnels. These connections consist of approaches, switches, shafts, and elevators, which carry the tunnel cars to the levels above. And this is where things get very interesting, if they haven't been already. How tunnels are built in. In many of these cases, the tunnel connection was a part of the original plan of building construction. Do I need to read that again? I will anyway. Was a part of the original plan of building construction. This was done on purpose. And I have not seen one time in a narrative where they tell us about the construction of a building's tunnel system, where it should definitely say that according to this document, where they state that that was a part of the building's construction. There has not been a single time that the narrative has explained how this was done, or even mentioned that a tunnel was connected to the building. Was this an attempt to hide that these buildings now hold this tunnel system? A tunnel system that is massive, right under our feet, that is no longer available to the public after 2001. Can you see that these tunnel systems may be used for something else now? You tell me. Again, I'll ask, now knowing what we know, where are we really? Do we fully understand that there are more than just hallway-type tunnels right under our cities?
I even found the name of the chef, but not a word about what they were served. Not a word about what they were served.
The ones that we are shown and told about, where I believe that we are past this point in our knowledge. I think we know that there is so much more below the ground. Structures, rooms, buildings, places that we are definitely not allowed to go or ever see. If they have hallways, they have more.
This building was probably about 12 stories and had almost as many floors below ground as above. Some buildings in the loop had their basements lowered so they could meet the tunnel. This is one of them. I believe this is one over at near Monroe and Wabash, where they've actually lowered the basement.
These underground tunnels, bases, these are not new ideas, and we know this. And we have seen a lot of lies, but this one is the biggest of them all. Telling us that no other city has tunnels. Are you kidding me? We know that they do. We have seen this. This is from a pamphlet issued probably, maybe. It might have been in the early 1940s, but they can't seem to remember anything from 80 years ago. By the Chicago Tunnel Company to advertise its services to local businesses and railways. So I'm going to ask you all a question. Do you really think that the tunnels are all done now? Do you think they haven't been expanded? Do you think that in the last 100 years, they just stopped making tunnels? Or do you think that Chicago has an even bigger, more in-depth underground system than we could ever imagine? Do you think every city might have this? Let me know.
They are in Wabash over at the Palmer House. What's really odd is I found this photo long after I had taken this photo at the exact same location.
17 East Monroe Street, Chicago, Illinois. We have the Palmer House Hotel, where we are told that there have been multiple Palmer House hotels on this exact same site. When the first Palmer House was built as a wedding present in September of 1870, because we all know that building a massive hotel in downtown Chicago and giving it away as a wedding present in the 1800s was very normal. This was a common gesture back then. Do you think these photos where buildings are bigger underground, do you think that these are just myths now? Let me know in the comments below. I'm very thankful for all of your support, and we have a lot more incredible stuff on the way. We're just getting started. The Illinois Tunnel Company. What a name. We have tunnel systems documented on atlasobscura.com stating that these tunnels are connected to these buildings that I'm going to name right now. The City Hall, which we know, Merchandise Mart, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Chicago Tribune Building, the Civic Opera House, the Field Museum, and dozens of others, where they were pumping tunnel air into theaters and hotels as natural air conditioning. In 1959, the Chicago Tunnel Company went out of business, of course, and sold everything for $64,000. To who? Who bought this company and acquired all of their assets, or the old world's assets? According to the Chicago Tribune, the city assumed control of the tunnel system. So there we have it, where we find out that more buildings are connected, or they used to be, when in the early 1940s, the subway cut it off from the major department store clients along State and Dearborn, such as the Boston store. They have an underground tunnel. Carson Perry Scott got one too. The Fair, the Davis store, Mandel Brothers, and F.W. Woolworth and Company. All of these buildings got a tunnel back then, all connecting these buildings. And we of course remember the accidental flood from 1992, where it was of course an accident. Wait, what is this? A court case where it was revealed that the city was aware the tunnel was leaking before the flood. And the city basically allowed it to happen, where they knew it was leaking and did not properly maintain the tunnel, allowing for the breach and the destruction of the tunnel. Very interesting information. I wonder why they allowed it in 1992, where we are told that a man named George W. Jackson led the Illinois Tunnel Company. And when you begin to dig into this guy's narrative, it begins to reveal everything. When we find an article in the Chicago Examiner from January 1909, this entire operation, this company, is tied to something very strange here. Remember when we were told the public map in 1910? Well, right before 1910, an event took place in 1909, 1 year before. The cost of construction had bankrupted the Illinois Tunnel Company, which is the exact same year. All a coincidence, of course, that this event took place as well. 1909, same year. 67 didn't make it by fire in an unprecedented lake disaster. Flames follow explosions. All of this happening 2 miles from the shore, inside the tunnels, where 48 were recovered. And it is known that many others are beneath the surface of the lake. Again, I'm going to ask you all, are we sure that these fire narratives are what they are? Are they not nods telling us what they found? I'm simply asking questions because we have seen so many times that these questions end with answers. Exact identification will probably never be made of many of them, for most of them are headless, burned or dismantled, all connected to George W. Jackson Company. Were these bones found within the tunnels, possibly bones of the past, and explained away with this narrative? Trapped in the tunnel 160 feet below the ground, a fire that was actually an explosion, according to Chicagoology.com, where the source of the fire is that an explosion happened 3 minutes before the flames. Destruction of the past? Destruction of what they found? Where the dates are exact. And now switching from the Illinois Tunnel Company to the Chicago Tunnel Company, where another idea that I'm going to throw out there right now is that, is it possible that these tunnel systems were of course there from the past, from the previous civilization, but did these tunnels hold things inside them? Things that we have seen in episodes 72 and 78. Were these tunnel systems found underneath Chicago? Thousands of miles of tunnels. Where else have we seen this? Odessa? Paris? What are inside those tunnels today? Have these tunnels in Chicago been cleaned out of what was once there and then given a new purpose? What are we finding? The deeper we go the more information we gather. Thinking logically, why would they go through the trouble to create thousands of miles of tunnels under the city when they had dirt roads, creating all of these tunnels and only to use them from 1904 to 1959, using them for only 55 years, and then blocking them off to the public? Today, we are going to investigate a location that does not belong in our historical narrative. Situated 7,000 feet high, located in Turkey, we have Mount Nemrut, yet another location that definitely should have been headlined in History 101. This place should have been one of the first things that we were all told about. Yet, my history classes mentioned this location a total of 0 times. Clearly, these heads did not fit into our narrative, where they are 100% destroyed. We can see that 7,000 feet up in the mountain did not matter to the past. Any altitude would do just fine. With their hammers and chisels in hand, they would climb up the mountain, construct perfect statues, and be back home for dinner. The narrative tells us that the pattern of damage to the heads suggests that they were deliberately damaged, where it is admitted. And of course, they will never know who it was that destroyed them, where they are trying to tell us that they know exactly who built them and the exact year, where they tell us that it was 62 BC, not 61 and not 63, but negative 2086. They have all of this written down in their journals. No. And they begin to give us backstories on these statues, telling us that they were once seated with names of each god inscribed on them. How would they know this? That they were once seated with names of each god inscribed on them. How would they know this? Unless, of course, they were the ones that removed it. It's very interesting. Where at some point, the heads of the statues were removed from their bodies. Now, within this community, we have shown exposing massive lies within the narrative that we have all been told. We show that there was a previous civilization here, a civilization that was extremely advanced. We have documented where a lot of them may have gone. We have also shown how our current civilization today has been repopulated. We know that there are groups funding these projects, funding these narratives to keep this previous civilization out of our history books. And these groups that were created in the last 60 years continue to go to these incredible sites and destroy them. Renovate them. Where this photo shows their work, in my opinion. You can see the heads at the bottom. And then you can see the stones were placed around the bottom of them. Clearly something that our civilization would do. The supposed evolved and advanced group. Just piling stones on the bottom of them. Just very advanced work. It's completely destroyed. And these heads at the bottom are not the same color as the heads above. So I'm guessing there were more statues that have been blown into millions of pieces here. And then we have this photo where look at all of that grinded up material right behind them. Did we just throw the previous civilization's work right into a grinder and spit it out right behind the statues? You tell me. Here's a different angle of it, where I know I've seen this before. Anyone else see what I see? Let me know in the comments below. A very clear destruction site in my opinion. And here we can see just how difficult this would be 2,086 years ago, where we have seen this narrative before, when they built a cave thousands of feet in the air just to get a little privacy, when a much better location to chisel perfect statues 2,086 years ago would have been on the ground. And we all know this. They even have these stone molds where Turkey was supposedly running out of space 2,080 years ago. And this site was used for chiseling and stone molding practice, where we are told even the known history of the kingdom is a little shrouded in history. Shrouded to hide something. Where we are told the name of the builder. They know exactly who built these things, if you can believe it. These sculptures were supposedly built by King Antiochus, built as a tomb sanctuary for himself. No. Where the facial features are Greek and the clothing is more Eastern. And for the best part, that these structures are no longer standing in their original positions. So we're at the point that we know that someone, a group, most likely the same group that we have seen all over the world, this group has most likely already been to this location, clearly destroying it. We have shown very clear evidence of this today, very clearly destroying the previous civilization's work, 7,000 feet into the mountains. Oh, hey, look who has a page on this place. It's our great friends over at the WMF. It's crazy that we have the exact same interests as this group over and over. It's so nice of them to help preserve our favorite spots, where they even have a nice write-up about this location. So let's see what they have to say. The Armenian king ruled the small territory in the 1st century BC, where the king reached a peaceful agreement with Pompey. Of course he did. Yes, very peaceful. There were lots of witnesses. It's a very nice gesture. Lots of handshaking and laughs. And we all know this is 100% a very true story. No, we don't. Where 5 years later, on the dot, the Roman Senate recognized the king as a friend. It's so nice that they were all getting along. It's also so nice that the mainstream treats us like little kids, telling us these incredible stories of friends in the making, where 2,000 years ago, they had master sculptors. But then we get to the 1800s, and we're all back to riding around on donkeys and living in sheds. Master sculptors carving a monumental scene of the king seated among the gods, including Greco-Roman deities. And then Abe Lincoln, a president of the United States, is born in a shack in 1809. So where exactly is the evolving and advancing thing that we're all told about over and over? 2,000 years of advancing. We're told by the mainstream narrative that 2,000 years ago, we had master sculptors carving seated kings 7,000 feet high on a mountain. After 1,800 years of advancing, you would think that we would have evolved a little bit and built more than just a couple statues on a mountain. You would think that we would have advanced, maybe a little bit even, into maybe making stone sheds at the very minimum. But no. We were making wooden sheds that didn't even have a bathroom. You had to go outside to the outhouse. Are we all seeing this? It's incredible when you really think about it. We are told there were some conflicts with Julius Caesar, and we've seen this in episode 77, our 1 hour long episode, where the owner just orders a palace, and it's there forever. And now they say that 2,000 years ago, Antiochus orders the assembly of a mountain of crushed rock. He's just ordering it. Any delivery man will do. Back 1,800 years ago, where I think this is a massive lie. That 50-meter pile of crushed rock is 100%, in my opinion, the crushed stone of the incredible work of the previous civilization. All in my opinion, of course. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point. We just need 50 meters of crushed stone way up on that mountain, 7,000 feet in the air. What would we do without that crushed stone 2,000 years ago? This story is ridiculous, where the statues, each over 9 meters tall, have all been damaged by earthquakes. But these were no ordinary earthquakes. These were the earthquakes that would chop the heads off of statues from 2,000 years ago. Extremely picky earthquakes that just wanted the heads. All documented. No, of course it's not. Where the earthquakes took their stone heads and sent them rolling down the hillside. Or did someone go in there and remove the heads and grind most of them up and put them right behind the site, 50 meters high, and then roll the other ones down the hill? What do you think? You tell me. where it was, of course, rediscovered in 1881. So let's get this straight. They didn't even know about this place until 1881. And archaeological activity only began in 1953. Rediscovered in 1881. Exactly like we have talked about here so many times. With our civilization, all of us, just starting only a few hundred years ago. Our timeline that we are all given, beginning around 1700, finding this place in 1881, and then knowing all about the negative 62s, 2086 years ago, knowing all about it. Not 2085 years ago, but 2086 years ago on the dot. They know all about this date. Can you see the lie very clearly now? Where since the start of the excavation, most of the heads have been found. Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. Incredible. Where the INF was charged with the stabilization, conservation, and presentation of this site, where we know that they just found this place in 1881. So for 1900 years, this place needed a total of 0 restoration projects. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because we found it, it now needs our help. Where I want to know, do you really think that this place needed our civilization's help? I'm really curious what you think. Please let me know. Solicited WMF to lead the stone conservation and structural consolidation initiatives and to participate in drafting a management plan, where we have seen this before in other narratives, where this is supposed to be a tomb, we are told. Yet there is no body in there. Indeed, the body of the king. It's thought to have been buried in the chambers, beneath his man-made mountain, though his tomb has yet to be found. So the mainstream pretends to know all about this site. They pretend to know the dates and the names, all associated with the construction, and the reasons why it's there. Yet, the one-time physical evidence of their claim needs to be presented. Their claim is proven to be a lie. There's no individual in there, where we know they haven't found anything. It's not a tomb. Never has been, and it never will be. So are they still looking? Are they still on the hunt for this person? No, of course not. Where I'm sure it's possible, just like we've seen at Easter Island in episode 60, that some of these heads are just the top of the entire structure. Missing heads, where these heads were possibly giving us depictions of what the previous civilization might have looked like, giving too much away to all of us, and just needing those earthquakes to chop all of their heads off and rolling them down the hill and leaving everything else perfectly in place. It makes total sense. Oh no, it doesn't. I am just so thankful that we have so-called experts that went to college, majoring in time travel, to tell all of us about the year 62 BC. Because what would we ever do without them? I decided to check this place out on Google Earth, and the very first place that I pick to drop the guy down, I see this, where you can see the site, and then turn the camera to the side. And we have this thing over here on the side, which is pretty incredible. Now you can see that if these are true depictions of the past, these individuals' heads were so much bigger than ours are today. We are tiny compared to the past, in my opinion. We've shown this a lot. We are even shown that there are tunnels at this site, entrances to an overall structure. And of course, right near the site, you have this bridge, showing that this whole area is extremely significant to the past. A bridge that is still working today, where our bridges fall apart in a few decades. And we all know this. Let's check this place out even more, where we can see this mound of crushed up stone, where my guess is that something is underneath it, with things being buried, as you can see in this depiction right here. But I think that there's something much bigger than this, possibly further down as well. It's very interesting. Remember, all we are told about it is that they ordered it to be done, and that was it. So we don't get much information. on this mound of crushed up stone, other than them just ordering it for no reason at all. And do you understand how hard this would be to crush up this much stone and place it here, up on a 7,000 foot high mountain, 2,000 years ago? Just order it, and it's there forever. And the timeline that we are told about, this is ridiculous. So we started over there, and then over here, we have more stone structures. So let's just go around more and spin it back. And you're going to see that the earthquake also attacked this statue's head as well. Goodness, can you believe this earthquake? Honestly, how did we believe this nonsense for so long? Earthquakes that just attack heads of stone structures on a 7,000 foot hill. I can't believe this. Who else sees a massive destruction site? I do wonder, why did they leave any of them? Why didn't they just destroy them all? And look at the location of these things. Just coming way up here to carve statues and lay a big mound of crushed up stone. All for a tomb, and no tomb is even there. This is not the true story in my opinion. It's completely made up. And on Google Earth, you can even see people going up to the top. So I'm not sure if you can still do that today, but I would love for somebody to scan with ground penetrating radar and see if something is under all of these broken pieces of stone. Oh, what is this? In September of 2012, a group of archaeologists using ground penetrating radar and related techniques discovered a pyramidal shaped chamber about 6 meters long and 2.5 meters wide and 3 meters high, and about 15 meters or 50 feet beneath the apex of the Nemrut tumulus. They are letting us know that there are things under this stone. It was not just an order to get a bunch of crushed up stone for no reason. This was deliberate. There is something underneath. And we are correct. They speculate it could be a sarcophagus, along with other objects, possibly statues, where 2 other chambers have been located. Near the larger pyramidal chamber, where the Turkish authorities are not allowing the site to be excavated. So we can only speculate as to what is in the hidden chambers, where the Turkish authorities stumble on this place in the 1800s. They did not construct it, but now they are not allowing the world to see what is under all of that crushed up stone, where the ground penetrating radar gave this depiction underneath that stone, proving that there are things being hidden from us. Can you see very clearly now that we are correct? That this is a worldwide operation to suppress the truth. We have seen this in China, where they have trees and dirt on top of pyramids, hiding things that would explain our true past, hiding things under massive mounds of crushed up stone, where the stone was most likely the old world's work. Are we understanding now how this works? How the narrative is controlled 100% everywhere? How you are not allowed to know what is really going on at these locations, at these sites, and you're just told about a friendship story instead. A bunch of nonsense, where most people believed it until now. Where we are just getting started on this channel. We will be uncovering another site, this time located all the way in Syria, where we are told that this site was constructed in 1300 BC. Predating Turkey's site by nearly 1,300 years. A site that we were told had 3 phases, and they know the exact dates of all of them, where we are shown the exact same thing, where griffins, a possible connection to Tartaria, griffins that have their heads removed from the overall statue yet again. Where if they were teaching about these sites in our history classes, I think I would have been a little bit more excited to get brainwashed every day. Removing the heads, exactly like they did in Turkey, where I don't see this as a coincidence at all, especially when they are located over 200 miles apart, destroying the truth, which is most likely the exact same thing that they did with the head of the Sphinx, located in Giza, Egypt, where we have footprints. Wait, did I say we were waiting until next week to expose this location? There's been a change of plans. We're gonna do this right now. No waiting around. Where we are told that these footprints, each about 3 feet, 3 inches in length, we are told are carved into the stone floors. Where is it possible that these are not carvings and they are actual footprints of the past? Where these feet are feet of an individual measuring 66 feet in height. Giants, all located at Ain Dara, a site that was just found in 1955. Yet again, another location that is destroyed, set atop an artificial hill, where you have to ask, what could still be underneath this site? Where they tell us that this place has a lot of similarities to Solomon's Temple, also known as the first temple in Jerusalem, all located in Syria. Again, I'm at the point where I don't believe that these stories, these locations, were from thousands and thousands of years ago. I believe that this all occurred a lot closer to our timeline than we've been told, possibly only a few hundred years ago. And these dates of 1300 BC and 740 BC are given to us by some random excavator, where the surveying sculptures depict lions and sphinxes are comparable to the cherubim of the first temple. Also left to speculation is to whom the temple is dedicated, where yet again, the temple was significantly damaged by Turkish jets during the military operation in 2018, where 60% of the structure was reduced to rubble. And we can see the site here, where it looks like there's some weird pattern in the ground all over the place. It's very interesting. And of course, no street view here on Google Earth, with the closest street view located up this road. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we just can't see this place? And we have more from the footprints, and we've all heard of the fingerprints of the gods, Graham Hancock. But have we just located the footprints of the gods? The entire front facade of the temple has been destroyed, and the site's emblematic basalt lion was stolen in 2019 by members of the Hamza division, which is part of the Syrian National Army, where at this point, we can all see very clearly that our true history is being destroyed worldwide and has been for a very long time. Let me know in the comments what you think that they wanted to hide from us. I have an idea, but I want to know all of your opinions at this point, after everything that we've discussed. This is a photo of the site from before the bombings, where it's clearly already been destroyed. Heads have been removed that would have shown depictions of the past that do not fit in at all with the narrative that we've all been told today. And here is a photo of the giant lion that was stolen in 2019, where in my opinion, it looks like something that would hold something of value inside of it. Here are more photos of the site before the bombing. And here is the site today. Talk about going into the middle of nowhere to drop a bomb, purposefully destroying an extremely valuable site. There's no doubt about it. This was deliberate, complete destruction of the past, worldwide. Like we have shown, it is no longer a question if we are correct or not. We're spot on at this point. There is something massive being hidden from us, our true past, our true purpose. And it is not just one location of the world. It is in every single country, every city, every town. We are not told the truth about our historical narrative. There was an extremely advanced group of people right here where we are today, a massive group. They were here much closer to our timeline than what we have been told. And knowing this unlocks so many questions, where questions from thousands of people, all with different points of view, different skill sets, different knowledge, all working together. These questions, they will always find answers. We all know that restoration really means destruction. Welcome to Portland, Maine, where we are given the United States Custom House, a structure that we are told was completed in just 5 years. And of course, would have gone a lot faster if it wasn't for all the delays in obtaining the granite for the upper stories. It's incredible. where the need for the new custom house. Wait, a new one? What is this? The fire destroyed the exchange building, which had previously housed the customs office, post office, and courts, as well as 1,800 other buildings in the center of the city, all gone to this fire. Now, with 1,800 buildings gone in flames, where some of them were stone, where we all know that stone is not flammable, we get this interesting article in the Portland Herald, where there is confusion about the death toll. Of course there is. On July 10th, 6 days after the fire, they report that 3 intoxicated men burned and didn't make it, which was one of the first buildings to burn down. However, it's also reported only one person didn't make it, where you can read the ridiculous story here. I'm not buying that one at all. You can catch a lady, but not a baby. It's ridiculous. Where the final number finally comes out, where on July 14th, the news reported there was no loss of life, where none of the reports were authenticated. We've seen this before in episode 59, where these great fires can destroy cities, making them look like bombs went off on stone buildings all over the world, in nearly every single city. Yet everybody was just fine, and nobody had an issue getting away from this fire that exploded stone buildings. Not a single stone wall fell on anybody. Everybody just hopped on their horse and ran off into the sunset. So 1,800 buildings are gone, including the exchange building. That looks like a palace in itself. If this was one of the 1,800 buildings destroyed, could you even imagine what this city looked like? No power tools, riding around on horses and wagons. They were just all living in palaces, throwing another column in there just for fun. And every time I see this picture of the exchange building, it just looks like they put a new filter on it on Instagram to make it look like it's from back in the day. We are told that the exchange building was constructed between 1835 and 1839. 4 years. Remember, this is 56 years before they had a power tool. And this is where every single person should see that they are being told a massive lie. Knowing what we know about all of the historical patterns, get ready. Here we go. July 4th, 1866 was the end of this building, where it was burned down by a fire that destroyed the entire city. 1,800 buildings, spreading from stone building to stone building, column after column, where after being in use for 15 years, this building burned down on January 8th, 1854, where demolition was the only alternative. Between 1854 and 1965, 2 more federal buildings occupied this exact same site. Multiple buildings, yet again, multiple fires. A total and complete mess of the narrative. Patterns that we've seen all over the world, not giving us any information about how these buildings were just thrown together and knocked out over and over on the same site with ease. The ones that remain are incredible. Go inside one of them. They are not something that was just built by a few guys on their donkey. They were clearly built with perfection. So let's go deeper and investigate this man, this character that we were all given, Richard Bond, where he is pinned to the North Congressional Church from 1836, a church that is beating our churches today, just barely, with those nice vanilla skies. And the sky wipeout didn't work that well. As you can see, the tree is all messed up. So they just knocked this one down. They just didn't need that one anymore. 4 years later, he knocked out another church in Boston, where in 1912, they were just using it to repair people's shoes. They had so many buildings from the previous civilization, all just sitting around, that they could just turn it into whatever they want, or just knock it down. just like they did with this one as well. So Richard Bond is just knocking out castle churches and Greek revival public buildings. He was born in 1798. He was son of a farmer. Remember that. He just establishes himself as a carpenter. And then next thing you know, out of nowhere, he is now an architect. Which school did he go to? Who trained him? None of this would be an issue for Richard. He would join forces with Isaiah Rogers and form Rogers and Bond, where you're never gonna guess what Rogers' dad did. This guy was also a farmer. Everyone was just either a farmer or a master architect in the 1800s. There's no in between. And if you're a farmer, your kid is destined to be a master architect. This is incredible. And we've all seen the Hannaford and Sons. And they're now mixing narratives here with his wife named Hannah Ford. Hannaford and Sons. The AI name generator has obviously ran out of names. Very odd. So Rogers and Bond, this firm, only lasted until the following year, of course, when Rogers left for Boston. So Bond, with all of his training from nobody, went on to work alone until 1850, where he would go on to construct palace after palace after palace, where nearly every single one of them were demolished. After all of the fires, after all of the nonsense we are told, this is what is here on that site today, where I believe that this building has always been here and survived all the destruction and the rest. You can even see that it is partially buried into the ground. I believe these steps, they were never there. And this is our civilization adding that in. The front door to this place is lower and was possibly buried and is now in the so-called basement, where the basement was originally the first floor. And this has now changed. We've seen this all over the world, over and over, where the front door is always lower and is now possibly buried. And here is where things get very weird. Remember, we have Bond and Rogers, friends, teaming up for a year. Well, now we have the architect of this place being Alfred B. Mullett. And guess who this guy was also partners with? There it is, Isaiah Rogers. And Mullett's supposed works are insane. From 1861 to 1872, 11 years, that's it. He knocked out 17 palaces in 11 years, if you can believe that. This is before the power tool. Now I'm gonna ask again, how are we to believe that every single architect in the world, every single builder was perfect? Over and over, they were perfect. There was never a mistake, and these buildings are incredible today. We can all see them. They're not something that we're making up. These places, you can actually go inside of them. And there was never a mistake. And these people could supposedly build palaces in 1 to 2 years, over and over and over. 11 years, and he knocked out 17 palaces. And we never questioned this before. Well, that's all changing now. I know that our current civilization, with power tools, with computers, with all the technology, all the training, everything, we do not knock out 17 palaces in 11 years today. We don't do that. And I know we cannot do that without power tools. And we have had a lot of people confirm this. We know this. Without power tools, our civilization could never do this. Yet they did it all the time, 200 years ago. So something is off about this narrative, and we know this. So let's go further. Was this just the post office guy? Where 15 of his buildings were post offices. Did the Treasury Department, did they own this guy? Or did they create this character? Did they make him up? Where this post office in New York was designed by the office of the supervising architect of the Treasury Department under Alfred B. Mullett. Has anyone ever heard of a 27-year-old master architect? I think we've shown one before in the past, about 60 episodes ago, where he was knocking out castle prisons. If you missed it, today's your lucky day. Alfred B. Mullett was born in 1834 in England, where his dad bought 80 acres and enrolled at Farmers College. I have to be honest, I laughed when I saw that one. Incredible. 3 for 3 today. They had to just get the farming part into the narrative somehow. This narrative is 100% AI generated in my opinion, without a doubt. It repeats itself over and over. And if you didn't understand what to look for, you would never find anything. But now that we know exactly what to look for, we find it all the time. And if you didn't understand what to look for, you would never find anything. Especially in the 1900s, when our civilization wasn't introduced to the AI yet. We didn't even know that was a thing. But now we do. So we find it very easily. It's all right here for us, right on your computer. You don't have to go to the library and dig through thousands of books anymore. Born in 1834, and his first project started and completed in 1861. And this story is insane. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it says that on March 10th, 1861, they got the land from Allen. Alfred's first project was approved. And just 16 days later, the foundation was finished with the laying of the cornerstone where I know it now. I've mentioned this a few times, but we have this 100% pinned down now. We are exposing this right now, in real time. Are you ready? The stone is larger than the rest and is hollowed out to allow a box of mementos, where it was opened up in 1961 and the documents were already gone. So a new container was put into the stone. A new container put into the cornerstone, where we now know what is going on here. We know that the previous civilization put valuable items inside these cornerstones all over the world, just like we showed in our 1 hour special, episode 77, where they just couldn't remember where the cornerstone was to the St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. They had 100,000 people there to watch, and then nobody could remember where it was. We know that they know exactly where it was. They never forgot, they simply went and removed it. And this is so clear now. The cornerstones hold incredible information, possibly the details on how the building was constructed, or materials inside. There's something inside these cornerstones, and we called it right here on this channel. Unbelievable. Especially when we drive this point home and show the world that we are correct. And we take a look at the U.S. Capitol building, where in 1991, a search for the Capitol cornerstone was conducted. Remember, we are told that this building was constructed in 1793. We are at the point in our research where we understand that they are not going to wait 198 years to go look for a cornerstone for the first time. And if they really did build it, they wouldn't have forgot where it went. This right here is 100% evidence, in my opinion, that our civilization are the finders or the founders of these structures. They did not construct these buildings. They would know where the cornerstone is without a doubt. A search for the Capitol's cornerstone was conducted, including use of metal detectors. Metal detectors for stone? The cornerstone. Are you able to see very clearly now? To locate the engraved plate. It was, of course, never found, so we are told. Where we know that they located it and found whatever was inside from the previous civilization. These cornerstones hold something incredible inside them. And today, we have taken our research a massive step forward, where we all now know this information as well. Now, after getting done with Mullett's church, all in my opinion, of course, but my guess, after everything that we've seen, everything that we have shown, is that this Mullett guy is a character and is most likely not a real person at this point. So let's go even deeper and expose even more to the world. He then went on to knock out the Carson City Mint, located in Nevada, where I'm thankful to report that this one is still standing today. But again, you can see that this building is bigger than we can see. The windows are going underground level, where the narrative is slipping up now. They can't even keep their own story straight. We know that Alfred B. Mullett already designed a building before this one in 1861. We just covered it, but now they are stumbling and on the ropes. The building that housed the mint was the first designed by Alfred B. Mullett, where we know that that is not true. a book of lies. We are exposing it all, week after week. I appreciate every one of you. When something happens, such as the fire at the Tremont Neighborhood Church on May 28th, 2024, we are all seeing it happen live, sharing it with each other, and hopefully one day, the more people that are watching, the harder it will be for fires to destroy these incredible buildings. We are also over on X, Rumble, TikTok, Spotify, and Instagram. Now, I enjoy sharing these buildings and sharing their narratives, proving that they are from the previous civilization that was not here as far back as we all thought. I enjoy sharing the ones that are still here today, so that if you're in the area, you can go and see them for yourself. Incredible places that have been hiding right in front of our faces for so many years. Because so many times, we see where they are demolished. Just like we see with this supposed post office that Mullett is also pinned to, where they called this thing Mullett's monstrosity, built in 1880, we are told, and it was not received well. They didn't like this, if you can believe it. So they knocked it down in 1939. So I'm not sure who wouldn't like this, but I definitely wouldn't mind one or even two of these in my town today. Where at the bottom here, they say, with the passing of time and changing of taste, this is now one of Mallett's best works, if you can believe it. So, clear destruction of the past, saying they don't like it, so they knock it down, and then switch their mind after it's gone. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, something that is still here today that you can go and see was this one, the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, located in Washington, D.C., designed by our guy, Mr. Mullett, where it was generally regarded with scorn and disdain, where Twain referred to this building as the ugliest building in America, and the president calling it the greatest monstrosity in America, with the incredible historians calling it Mullett's Architectural Infant Asylum. Well, he resigned and then committed suicide just 2 years after this building was supposedly completed, also saying that this was the ugliest building in America. It's just our point here. Every single building, all the other ones were better than this one? Nothing was worse? Really? I mean, I know for sure I can find like 3 buildings right down the road that look worse than this one. Imagine, in all of America, saying that nothing was worse than this. I'm so glad to say that it's still here today, where it does hold the fire narrative. Once on Christmas Eve in 1929, and again, December 19th, almost Christmas Eve, 2007. When it nears Christmas time, stay away from that building. The main office was destroyed in 1987, and shortly after, 2001, you know the date. I'm not gonna say it on this channel ever again. And we all know why. The 17th Street side of the building was randomly vacated and then destroyed. It also survived the 1957 Demolition project. Here are some other buildings pinned to this guy's name, a very interesting character that needed to be shown to the world today. During a time period without power tools, able to construct so many buildings that would blow our minds today, that if they were built in any of our towns, I think a lot of us would be happy about it. Building them in so many states, all during the same time period, where this guy must have been riding around on Seabiscuit and wasting zero time, riding the heck out of that horse to get to his next destination, over and over. Palaces in Boston, palaces in New York, hitting 21 states in his career. Ohio, Nevada, Wisconsin, Maine, California, Oregon, South Carolina, Washington, D.C., Louisiana, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Michigan, and Connecticut. 21 states, never an issue. And we know that these stories are just that. They are stories, all to hide what we know. And that is that there was a previous civilization here. And these are their buildings. And this Kentucky Derby winner didn't build them. He was the man pinned as the guy, where him and his friends' dads were out busy farming, while he was at Farming University, where his master work just wasn't fitting the style of the times. When Abe Lincoln was born in a shed, and Abe's mom was just complaining about the palaces, getting thrown together in a year or two, all over the country, where she demanded that it was time to switch to the incredible basic box style that we all see today. Get those boxes done, and I want them done slow. I want to show you 2 clips of people excavating sites. This one in Iran, where they were digging to put a pool in, and instead uncovered the old world, showing even more evidence that where we live today and what we think is the ground is really the ceiling. And there is so much more under our feet, so much more to our history than what we have been told. We are uncovering it all, 1 week at a time, gathering more and more people to share information and inform the world. And we are all just getting started. Are you ready to take our knowledge of this place that we all live much further than before? Are you ready to expose old world maps? And are you ready to find massive ancient underground cities? Are you ready to see things from the old world that have been hidden for far too long? We have located a very interesting map from the year 1583, supposedly. Within the same map, we have Russia and Tartaria, both together, Tartaria, all here on the map within the last few hundred years. And not a single time did our history books ever mention this place. Never did they mention Tartaria. This is the main reason that I am so interested in this location. Why is this country, this massive place on our map, never mentioned to us? Why is it being suppressed? Why? We learn all about the Huns, the Roman Empire. We learn all about Julius Caesar and his friends. Why don't we hear about Tartaria? What is being hidden in this location? Who was this group that has now been taken over? As we see today, what happened to this group? Who took them over? How did this take place? Tartaria, or Tartary, a massive amount of land that we are not told about, where we can scroll to the left. And going back to episode 61, we have the land of Mu, or a land on this map called New Guinea. Now we can see that this map is showing that New Guinea is massive, basically the same exact size as South America. It is not this little tiny piece of island that we all see today, which we know is a no-fly zone. We have shown this. It is also much closer to North and South America than what we can see today, where this is another proof, in my opinion, that there is possibly a continent in this location where we've seen it called the Land of Mu, and there are stories about it. And if you'd like to see this map in real life, it is currently located in the Library of Congress, Rare Book and Special Collections Division, Washington, D.C., where we have shown in episode 83 how it seems like we have something massive just below South America. And switching over to this map, we can see that there are things in the ocean that are as big as Madagascar, with Tartaria right here, and of course, Shalaga, where this civilization, in my opinion, were the ones that were creating the thousands of miles of underground structures and tunnel systems from episode 80. And what is this land over here? Just hiding and all shaded, right in the location of Mu, or Lemuria, and lots of land up north, all shaded. The maps are very interesting, including this 1544 map, where Antarctica is as green as can be, including a map that we have all discussed in episode 70, the map of Monte, where things are connecting. The map that was bombed, as we showed, was one of 2 maps in existence that we have knowledge of that held the phrase, "Here be dragons," in Latin. Here be dragons. Very interesting. And while we're talking about Latin, scientific in Latin, meaning that it is fiction, if you can believe it, where the other map of the 2 being the Hunt Lennox map, when we are told that the first known depiction of a dragon on a map comes from the Ebstorf map, the map of Monte, from 1232. And then you wonder why this map was destroyed, holding keys to the past, keys to hidden knowledge. We know about this map. We have photos of it. We can still see its knowledge on the front side of it. Could something have been on the back? Who knows? And which maps were lit on fire immediately and never shown to us. Our history is completely fabricated to the core. It has been altered to hide that there was so much more here, where we are today, hiding a previous civilization, an extremely advanced civilization that constructed palaces all over the map, hiding dragons and the rest, hiding more land, hiding it all, having zero idea where you are or what you are doing here is key to control. If a group is lost and confused, and then there is a group willing to lead them, the lost group will follow. The destination is irrelevant. Whether it is good or bad, the lost group will follow. And this is why the world history is not true. Creating a brand new history creates a brand new future. Now, before we switch gears fully, I want to update everyone on our Chicago Tunnel episode 80, where I'm going to keep the individual anonymous. But I'm very thankful they reached out and emailed me, stating that his wife used to work in the Tribune building in Chicago, or as we know now, Shalaga. His wife worked there at the building and told us that there are currently 8 sub-basements, where the basement is divided in half. Half for housing the large equipment that runs the building, the other half for storage. 8 sub-basements, showing that these buildings are massive and not built by a horse and wagon community, and not built the way they tell us that they are, where they have never exposed this type of information to the public. Just looking at this building, we know that they are definitely hiding the truth from us. And now we know that it goes 8 floors under the ground. And to be honest, it may be more, where the individual also told me that these sub-basements are off limits to the public and have a guard standing by, where this building did not flood. And why do you think this is? Possibly because they knew the flood was coming and were warned by the city? Because they had previously concreted over the tunnel, and there is an elevator that goes down to the bottom level, where she says you could get lost down there and never found. And I'm sure some have. Incredible stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that is going to keep happening more and more. The more that this channel grows, the more this community grows, the more we all come together with brand new information from multiple angles, exposing the truth over and over, different perspectives and different experiences, all into one. It's great to see. And we're just getting started today, especially when we see this. Located in Turkey, known as Derinkuyu, where it is an ancient, multi-level underground city. We all remember in episode 80 when Chicago told us that no other city in the world has tunnels. What an incredible slip up. The further that we go into this research, the more ammunition that we have to attack this ridiculous narrative all over the world. When we are told that this site in Turkey is the largest excavated underground city in Turkey alone, and is one of several underground complexes found throughout Cappadocia, which is a region in Turkey. The underground city in Turkey could accommodate up to 20,000 people and had amenities found in other underground complexes, such as wine and oil presses, stables, cellars, storage rooms, where the mainstream historians were there. And they remember that the rooms on the left were used for studies. And this information about the rooms on the left have just been passed down from generation to generation. This is a bunch of nonsense. They don't know what activity was going on in these rooms. And we know this now. This is a guess, 100%. They don't have any idea what was going on in these rooms. And that's the reality of the situation. So let's not pretend that someone born in 1980 is going to know exactly what happened in rooms underground. You can't just walk into an abandoned building and know all about their basement. Somebody would have to tell you what each room was used for. So this story about them knowing that rooms on the left are used for studies. This story is nonsense. It's extremely important for all of us to be able to read a narrative and see through the children's stories. They are a trick, and they keep people in that trance where people would just accept it for years and never think twice. We are exposing ridiculous statements over and over, showing exactly how to detect them within a narrative so that you can go find them yourself. And this is not just in history. This kind of thing happens all the time, even to this day. It is very important to be able to critically think, to ask questions. Starting between the third and the fourth levels are a series of vertical staircases. Multiple levels under the city is exactly what we are reading, where we can now fully see that we were correct all along. We fully understand after the first 84 episodes that these cities are not just on the ground. Multiple levels under our feet all over the world, which we have shown. It's incredible. The old world creating all of this, where they had technology that would blow our minds today. And then possibly the most bone-chilling moment in all of our research so far, showing that this was a civilization that was in hiding. Hiding from what? What was the old world, the previous civilization? What were they hiding from? Where there is a large 180-foot ventilation shaft. The shaft provided water to both the villagers above, and if the outside world was not accessible, the water would be provided to those in hiding. Those in hiding. Can you believe this? Where the city accommodated up to 20,000 people underground. Multiple levels. What happened here where we all live today? Clearly the history that we have all been told is missing something massive. A mass destruction event that I believe was without a doubt within the last few hundred years. And we are all now back on the ground level. We are now the finders, or the founders, of all of the previous civilizations' work. And this is becoming extremely clear at this point. Where the caves might have been, maybe. Again, the mainstream narrative has no idea. This is the first thing that is stated, that the caves might have been built in the 8th to the 7th centuries BCE, like 2,800 years ago. Pinning this date down, maybe, as they like to say. So they pull that number out of thin air and continue on to tell us that they were replacing languages because one just died out. Of course it did. Just gone. Well, maybe it did. So the inhabitants expanded their caverns to deep, multiple level structures, 85 meters below the city. And let's just open the doors on this thing. Let's blow people's minds today and go deeper than ever before. Here we go. According to BBC, this is not a 4 to 5 level system. This is a site that encompasses 18 levels of tunnels. 18 levels of underground tunnels underneath the city. The largest excavated underground city in the world that we know of, where we know that this is most likely under every single major city in the world, where cave-like rooms stretch on for hundreds of miles, where it's thought that there are more than 200 small, separate underground cities that have also been discovered in this region, maybe connected to these tunnels, creating a massive subterranean network. 200 separate underground cities, all connected underground, 18 levels deep. I have to be honest, this is blowing my mind at this point. Remember, this is what we are all being told. Can you imagine what we are not being told about? Are these things actually deeper than 18 levels? What kind of rooms are really down there? How far do they really reach? Because obviously they have found things that we are not allowed to know about or see within these tunnel systems. Just like in Paris, where the catacombs underground go for thousands of miles, and only part of the ossuary is open to the public. Where in France, there is a much more extensive subterranean network of tunnels under other parts of Paris, which is, of course, off limits to visitors. So what was going on before we all got here? Because it is so obvious at this point that what we are all being taught is complete nonsense. It is not the full story. There was clearly a mass event that made it 100% necessary for massive tunnel systems to be present underneath all of these cities. We have shown that in Chicago, the thousands of miles of tunnels there have also been closed off from the public. Closing these tunnels off from the public today shows me that there is something still in these tunnels, or a purpose for these tunnel systems that's still going on today. There is a motive to block these off from the public. Why are they all working together, blocking these tunnel systems off from the public all over the world today? Is it to hide the past? Or is it to hide what is still in there? Is it to hide what's still going on under our feet today? Or is it to hide the future? 200 separate underground cities, all connecting to create a massive subterranean network where we are being lied to about our past 100%. And we are all discovering it and taking it back live in real time, where we are told that nobody even knew about what was below their feet until 1963 came around. So 1962, nobody knew that 18 levels and 200 cities were all connected right under our feet. This is only 61 years ago. 62 years ago, this place was hiding below our feet, undiscovered, yet they can tell us all about it today, saying they know all about the room on the left and know all about the negative 2800s, where we all know at this point that their narrative is not factual information. Rediscovering this site in 1963 by an anonymous local who kept losing his chickens while he was renovating his home. The chickens found a massive tunnel system. Tommy the chicken found a massive tunnel system 18 levels deep, where the poultry would disappear into a small crevice created during the remodel, never to be seen again. Where I definitely need to get some tunnel hunting chickens. Upon closer investigation and some digging, the Turk unearthed a deep passageway. It was the first of more than 600 entrances found within private homes, leading to the subterrestrial city. In this research, I always wonder, will anything ever blow my mind more than what I've just seen? And time again, it just gets more and more incredible. 600 entrances, 18 levels of tunnel systems, 200 cities connecting through a network, all under our feet, all found by a random guy and his chickens. The previous civilization was extremely advanced, fully understanding construction, creating palaces on the ground level, palaces that are still here today, as well as massive underground tunnel systems all over the world. This technology was known all over the world. They were not riding around on donkeys with hammers in their left hand and their chisels in their right. This thought process that humans are finally to the point of getting a telephone or internet, Wi-Fi, planes, trains, cars, all of this, thinking that this is all brand new. This narrative is no longer factual information. Clearly, there have been people here before that had much more technology than we do today. Clearly, there is something else going on here where we all live today. Something that an advanced civilization needed to hide from, and they were clearly able to do so, where according to the mainstream professors, they say that creating 18-level tunnel systems, 200 cities all connecting, would have been fairly easy to do with simple tools like shovels and pickaxes. This is easy, according to the mainstream narrative. Strategically creating a ventilation shaft that provided water in and out of the underground city. Thousands of miles of tunnels, all done very easily, This could have been done with a shovel, according to the brilliant man of Florida State University. According to this guy, 2,800 years ago, they could have done this in their sleep. A spoon or a shovel would have made no difference. The cavemen of the past just had tunnel construction down. They were born with this skill, where the mainstream has no idea who created these tunnels. Because remember, the chicken just found them 61 years ago. So who should they credit these tunnels to? Well, the credit of creating them remains a partial mystery. They don't know who created them, and go on to suggest that the Hittites made them, where they may have excavated them while under attack around 1,200 BCE. So the mainstream says 2,800 years ago, and now saying 3,200 years ago, where they can just make up any date they'd like yet again, and we all believed it, and saying that it was easy. We know that these tunnel systems all over the world were not created easily. 18 levels underground is not created easily with a little shovel. And these networks are never open to the public, which shows me that they may also connect to each other all over the world. We know that humans need sunlight to survive, where according to ChatGPT, survival without sunlight would likely be limited to a matter of weeks or months. So people, humans, are not going to be able to set up camp for months underground. We simply cannot survive underground for months or years, unless of course there was a power source, a light source, electricity. Which brings up a brand new question. Whoever was in these tunnels, 18 levels deep, do we all understand how dark it would be down there? Unless they had torches, where again, ChatGPT and AI will tell you that it would be extremely unlikely for a fire torch to stay on in a tunnel system that is 18 floors deep due to the lack of oxygen, ventilation, and fuel source, where it states, even if a fire were to start in a tunnel system, the amount of fuel may be limited. It would need a continuous source of fuel. Now, this is not realistic at all in the narrative that we are all told, especially since we are told that Edwin Drake drilled the first crude oil well in 1859. So, electricity, a light bulb, is the only option 18 levels below the ground. So going straight back to episode 10 and 38, are we 100% sure that electricity has never been here before? A light bulb. Who was living 18 levels deep in the dark? The answer is clear, that it would not be physically possible for a human to do this in the dark. And we know that a human could not survive or even construct something 18 levels down in the dark. I don't think this is looking so easy after all. And then survive there for months in the dark, proving one of two things. The first being that it was humans who constructed the tunnel systems, and they had technology, such as a light source, technology that we have been given back today. And we've discussed this so many times. But here we have physical evidence that a light source would be necessary. What we are doing right now is taking the mainstream narrative and shredding it right in half forever. They had to have had a light source 18 levels down. Nobody was constructing tunnels in the dark, and we know this. So the light bulb being invented in 1879, I believe, is 100% a lie. And we fully know this now. Now, I definitely believe it was humans. And I believe there was technology. They had a light source, and so much more. And this technology is being given back to us today. But let's just pretend, since we're investigating, that there wasn't a light source, like the mainstream history is telling us. We'll just go off of their story for a second. Building tunnel systems for thousands of miles in the dark, 18 levels deep with a shovel. 200 cities, all interconnected, tunnel systems, connected all over the world. Thousands of miles, for living spaces, a situation that a human would not thrive in at all, where it is possible that these tunnels and underground structures were created and constructed for survival, and many did not make it, which then in turn created the catacombs. Again, I will never hold back any thought or information, so let's take this a step further. Is there a species out there that we are unaware of today? A species that we are not being told about, hidden from us, blocking us off from the proof within these tunnel systems? A species that is living or have lived right under our feet. A species that would have thrived underground. At this point, we have found so much evidence simply because we have asked questions. And I think it's important to at least ask the question so that we're all aware of it in case we come across more evidence that supports it in the future. There are facts in play here. We know that we could not survive months underground in the dark. So we have to ask, who can? And who could build underground structures 18 levels deep, 200 cities under our feet, exactly like we have shown today, in the dark? Well, it could for sure have been humans, and I'm leaning towards that. But, like I said, it's important to ask questions. Could there have been or still be a species that is off limits to the public, a species that thrive underground, where we are told that the earth was destroyed first by fire and then by ice, and one earth world, the old world, passed into the other, our civilization today? It is told in the Native American stories that ant people took groups of virtuous humans into their underground homes and protected and taught them until the earth was safe for humans again.
This is quite a famous phenomenon. There are huge cities. They look like ant farms. They look like ant farms on an enormous scale that are dug out under the earth.
Where this took place in Colorado, meaning that there must be massive tunnel systems there as well. So I will be investigating that. Now, this is of course a legend, and I'm not saying it is proof at all, but it is very interesting and something to keep in mind that ant people are being discussed on the other side of the map, with massive tunnel systems all over the world, like we know. Who builds tunnels? Well, ants do. The last time I checked, humans are not known for their tunnel skills and living underground in the dark. But yet, we find tunnel systems everywhere, all interconnected strategically, where this is not just in Colorado. It is interesting to note that the Babylonian sky god was named Anu, where the Hopi word for ant is also Anu. And the Hopi root word for Naki means friends, suggesting that the Hopi, Anunnaki, or ant friends might have been the same group as the Sumerian Anunnaki. In multiple languages all over the world are put here to confuse us. Located in what we call today Iraq, around Baghdad. And if these were truly humans' friends, like we are told, and if we are truly in a little season, you can begin to put the pieces together and see why certain locations, such as Baghdad, are chosen to be bombed. Where in April 2003, almost the entire collection of ancient cylinder seals were stolen from the Iraq Museum in Baghdad, and it remains missing. Where the US tanks rolled into Baghdad, they broke into the museum. Looters rampaged through the halls, storerooms, and cellars, stealing more than 15,000 precious objects. Destruction of our true past, showing that this world is so much different than what we've been told, proving that there are things being hidden from us, things that would blow people's minds, species that could possibly still be here, species that are not coming from outer space, but more likely inner space, species that we were told have actually helped us, where the groups in charge have bombed their sites, destroying 15,000 proofs of our past. And we all know that it's more. When on April 14th, 2003, the Iraq National Library and national archives were burned down, destroying thousands of manuscripts from the previous civilization, where another 170,000 artifacts were stolen or broken. Now, can you even imagine what has been destroyed and hidden from us? 170,000 artifacts and text that would expose our true past, that are now gone, where we can all see very clearly now. We can see what happened and what is going on today. Destroying our history, destroying the true past, destroying the text and stealing them so that we can no longer see them, where you can see how important our past is at this point. If you no longer understand the past, this 100% means that the future can be fully manipulated and controlled. And I want to remind you all that we are just getting started on this channel. An article from 21 years ago states that the rumored existence of huge networks of tunnels beneath Iraq presented a whole new challenge to U.S. troops. We have located thousands of miles of tunnel systems all over the world. And today, we find an article written 21 years ago stating that the rumored existence of huge networks of tunnels are located beneath Iraq, where it stretches for miles, linking palaces, where we are told that there are no lights, just like we've talked about in episode 84, constructing 18 levels underground, in the dark, centuries before the invention of a light bulb. 100% challenges the mainstream historical narrative. Understanding that no human could ever construct a massive network of tunnels in the dark. We have found something massive. It seems like there may have been a much different reason for going over to Iraq than what we've all been told. Where Mr. Rumsfeld, at the time, the U.S. Defense Secretary, said, they've got enormous miles and miles and miles of underground tunneling. Continuing on to say, I don't know how inspectors on the surface of the earth can even know what's going on in the underground facilities. Now, we know that the United States has massive tunnel systems all over its major cities. We have found this right here on this channel. We know that they knew about this at least 150 years ago when they introduced these tunnels into our mainstream narrative, naming some of them catacombs, saying others were constructed for phone cables by the Illinois or Chicago Tunnel Company. So, if they knew that the United States held old world tunnel systems, they had to have known that these were all over the world. I personally think that they wanted to go to Iraq to see what technology, what information was being stored in their tunnel systems. I think that they probably found things in their own tunnel systems in the USA and fully mapped them out, blocking them off from the public. And now they wanted access to possibly one of the most important historical locations in the world. I think this may have been what 2001 was truly all about. Where the article continues on to say, we believe now that it is more than 100 kilometers or 62 miles, which is very interesting when we look back at Chicago, when we were told that it was thousands of miles of tunnels. And then later on, they tell us that it's only 60 miles. So basically, hiding the rest of the tunnel systems from us. A very clear pattern. 100 kilometers of very complex network, multi-layered tunnels, where we are seeing now that all of these tunnel systems are not just one layer. They are all multiple levels, where according to Patrick, few people have seen the tunnels. Now, I want to explain something. This is an important time for us to show these old world tunnel systems to everybody in the world, because they are in the middle of normalizing tunnels, which would completely saturate the entire topic. At the moment, we are not used to the tunnels being underneath all of our major cities. But after the Boring Company, or whoever else starts digging under our cities again, these tunnels from the old world are not going to be shocking anymore. It will be normal, where we know that it is not normal to have multiple layered tunnel systems from the old world. And in 10 to 15 years, I don't believe we will ever be able to go back to this point again. We have shown the caves in India, and then you can piece together Afghanistan as well, where this whole war was all about finding a guy in the caves, most likely destroying the old world caves in Afghanistan, and the tunnels, artifacts, and the rest that we have shown in episode 84, where the article closes out saying, after encountering the caves used by this group, which we can all read, in this group, in Afghanistan, and the rumors of tunnels in Iraq, the US military took steps to ready their troops, going on to say a site including miles of old mining caves in the desert of Southern California was turned into a tunnel warfare center in 2001. Miles of old mining caves in Southern California. Are we sure that these were not found before the mining took place? When they say gold rush, was this not a rush to find all of the old world technology, all of the old world gold? Before this research, I thought what we saw on the ground was basically all that there was to this place that we live. I had no idea that there were thousands of miles of underground structures in Chicago alone. I had no idea that every single city had tunnel systems, connecting palaces. I had no idea that the history told us that humans built underground tunnel networks, reaching 18 levels underground in the dark with a shovel. And we have been told that that's easy. It's absolute nonsense. Let's go to a much more recent article, January 2024, where the Times of Israel reports that senior Israel defense officials now assess that Hamas's Gaza tunnel network is between 350 and 450 miles long, far longer than previously believed. And I want to remind you all that this is what is being exposed to all of us. I believe that this tunnel network goes down multiple levels, just like we have shown, and extends much further than 450 miles. And what we see on the ground is nothing compared to what is going on under our feet. And then you wonder where the missing individuals go, where I think we know now. These catacombs could for sure just be all of us. Years and years of being taken. And once that section of the tunnel fills up in their geometric shapes, they just move on to the next section. And then they open it up for ticket sales, like we have shown. It can't get any clearer, if I'm being honest. Now, with all the technology that these governments have, you would think that they would be able to do some ground penetrating radar and see how extensive these tunnel systems are without ever even going there. I believe this is all nonsense, that they are just finding new tunnels now, where the estimate reported by the New York Times is markedly higher than the Israel Defense Forces assessment. They say there was 250 miles of Hamas tunnels last month, and this month it's 450 miles long. So in 3 years, what do you think it's gonna be? These tunnels are massive, and they go many floors down, connecting all over the world. If the public can own ground penetrating radar, the governments can probably see 1,000 feet under the dirt, if we're just being honest. Could you imagine, with the technology that we have today, they still have to send a dog in there to sniff it out? Come on. 2 Israel defense officials who spoke anonymously said there were roughly 5,700 separate shafts leading down into the tunnels. This is just incredible information. Understanding that these tunnels aren't a single level. Understanding that they go down so many floors underneath our feet and are all interconnected. This is unbelievable. In every single situation we see this. Some people have been taken into these tunnels and of course didn't make it, where Israeli forces have worked to destroy the tunnels. Again, my guess, after everything that we have seen, is that so many have been taken into these tunnels and have never come out again, where the tunnels connect below an area of the school. So we can see this is just a very dark subject in today's time, where I'm gonna try my best and lob this out there for anyone that is not understanding what I'm trying to say. According to the Child Crime Prevention and Safety Center. Every 40 seconds, someone under 18 goes missing or is abducted. In the US alone, approximately 840,000 go missing each year, and the FBI states that between 85 and 90% of them are not adults. So, where do they all go? Information is very important. A triangle system, finding tunnels below the schools, below hospitals, below the place of worship, where we know that this is not singled out to one city. This is all over the world. There is not a single thing that I've shared today that you couldn't go and find yourself. These things are all available to the public. Now, do you really think that these tunnels are stopping at borders? Do you think they get to the border and say, okay guys, we hit the border between Mexico and the USA. This is where we have to stop digging. Do you think that that imaginary line is stopping anybody 100 feet below the surface? Who is even keeping track of where they are on the land layout 100 feet below the surface? In my opinion, tunnels are 100%, without a doubt, crossing over imaginary borders, not just in the USA, Canada, or Mexico, but all over the world. And this has been going on for years, and they are all aware of this. They know that tunnels exist and are openly sharing this information with all of us. So do you think that these tunnels in these cities are just stopping there? Of course not. It's all so interesting and shows how in depth this place that we all live really is and always has been. Again, we know that these tunnels are not just hallways. They are not a single level. An article written by BBC in 2020, where US officials say they have discovered the longest tunnel ever found on the border with Mexico, where this tunnel stretched 1,313 miles. The tunnel, of course, had a lift, rail tracks, where I'm sure the Chicago Tunnel Company had to get back into business and was hard at work. They had a drainage and air ventilation system and high voltage electrical cables. Again, in my opinion, these tunnels have been here for a very long time. I don't believe that our civilization are the sole creators of these networks of tunnels. Surely we have added to them, but I believe that this land layout that we all live on is filled with old world tunnel systems that connect all of the old buildings, exactly like we were told.
Hey, my dad is the night supervisor at Marshall Fields. Maybe they have an opening. And they did. And they did. There's water in the Pittsfield building, and Marshall Fields, and the City Hall, and this place and that place. And we don't know where it's coming from. And I thought, I know. All those places had one thing in common. All older buildings, all older buildings, all older buildings, all older buildings that were connected to the freight tunnels still.
And they have been here all along from the previous civilization. They found these so-called smuggling tunnels, yet they found no drugs and nobody was arrested. How can you call it a smuggling tunnel if you don't find any drugs and nobody was arrested? It doesn't make any sense. So are we sure these are smuggling tunnels? Or are these old world tunnels that have gotten some cables installed? And then authorities, of course, did not say who they thought was behind the creation of the tunnels. They don't seem to know much about it, where it was not clear how long it took to build it. This tunnel has an average depth of 70 feet below the surface, and this is what we are told. Switching gears here, we are told about the Griffin. We know how it's connected to Russia, Asia, and of course Tartaria. And this gets interesting, where the Griffin and Arimaspians were associated with gold deposits of Central Asia, where Tartaria was located. Now, this group were a legendary tribe of one-eyed people. Again, going back to the gold rush that we were all told about, going to California, where all tales of their struggles with the gold guarding griffins guarding the gold. So is this the reason that Tartaria and griffins are not taught to us today, considering the possibility of a season that is little, where the griffin is considered a protector from evil, witchcraft, and secret slander, where that seems like the time period we're currently in? clearly a creature that was here, shown at the St. Mark's Basilica, another one at the Ripon Cathedral in England, and of course, a photo from 2007, a Griffin statue in the front court of a cemetery located in Budapest, the Royal Air Force Police Badge in the United Kingdom, a griffin right here in the middle, and a map where we are told from 1587, Urbano Monte's map, a map that has some strange creatures, massive birds carrying elephants in South America, a map that depicts South America connected to Antarctica, where we know something massive is there now, and a griffin depicted right here in North America, modern-day Canada, and another one right here with so many different types of creatures located in Antarctica. And there is so much written on each one of these triangles. If anybody can read these and let me know what they say, that would be incredible. You have the USA right here with La Florida, Canada, Gulf of Mexico. This map is incredibly detailed with an interesting section right here where you have a guy coming out of the water and something else going on here right above Brazil. There are only 3 surviving copies of this world map today. They are located at Stanford University and have been recently digitized. This is, by the way, a 10-foot map. It was originally 60 separated sheets and have now been put together to make one photo. Now, it is interesting to note, this is a map of the Earth on a flat map. It is not a ball. It shows the Earth circling around the North Pole, with every direction away from the central point, the North Pole, being south. There's a magnetic pole in the north, where this map was created to serve not only as a geographical tool, but also show climate, customs, length of day, distances within regions, where the whole map could be stuck on a central point, the North Pole, and then revolve around this central pivot point, where it of course had cities all over it in red, and of course massive palace-like structures. And then flipping to the next page, we have this, a diagram showing the detailed length of days and nights during the different months of the year, eclipses of the sun on the next page, and even a chart showing wind directions throughout the year. These maps are so interesting. I could honestly look at them all day. We know that there is so much more here where we live, on the surface and below, as well as within us, where we have all been treated as if we are just basic, common, standard typewriters, when in reality, I believe that we are all supercomputers, and possibly even more. And I believe that once we all come together, it creates a massive source of power. I believe this is known and has been used against us for many years. We are currently in the process of taking our power back. Now, switching gears here, we have seen the 18-level tunnel system located in Turkey, which we know was found by the local chicken. And we know that those tunnels could for sure be deeper than the 18 levels that we're told, where they connected to at least 200 other cities. So today, we're going to stay in this region just north of Turkey. We have the country of Georgia, and this is all right below the modern-day Russia, or once known as Tartaria, where we are going to expose the Lord's Fortress, an ancient rock town in eastern Georgia, a cave complex where we know that these most likely are melted structures of the past and go far underground, where the so-called experts know that this location, one of the oldest urban settlements in Georgia, when Johnny the investigator tells all of us that human presence at this site dates all the way back to the end of the 2nd millennium BC. So around 3,000 years ago, we are told, where this is according to carbon dating. Carbon dating is based on testing a tree or a plant near the site, and then estimating how long the tree or the plant near the location has been dead. So telling us when people lived somewhere based on a dead bush is complete nonsense. They cannot test the actual stone. They have to find a dead organism that was once living and then make an estimate about the site. This is not proof, and we know this now. Take a look at this place. It is very clearly melted. It looks like a random hill, and really makes you wonder what all these so-called hills really were, or still are. And this place really is incredible, where the middle part is largest and contains a bulk of rock-cut structures and is connected to the southern part via a narrow rock-cut pass and a tunnel, where we just showed that this kind of thing was really easy, according to the Florida State genius. All they needed was a shovel, just carving rock tunnels for miles. Very easy 3,000 years ago, where they were not distracted by their video games or cable TV. And like I've said, these tunnels connect all over the world. When we see that these tunnels have staircases, surely going deeper into the ground than just one level, where there's a pillared hall with 2 adjacent rooms, where of course, one is the most important and has a stone bench where the ruler sat, probably, maybe. Well, the mainstream literally has no idea. And we know this, and they've obviously already been there. Groups that we have discussed, they're always taking care of our favorite locations, all around the world. And we are also told that archaeological excavations have discovered numerous artifacts from different periods, including gold, silver, and bronze jewelry, and other things, where we've shown that Griffins guarded the gold, and now they are gone. Where many of the artifacts, so not all of them, many of the artifacts are kept safe. Could you imagine what they really found there? And a bomb destroyed the site in 1920. Oh wait, no. I mean a picky earthquake. Can you believe how repetitive the mainstream narrative is? Using the same exact destruction stories over and over, where we have been told that this site has been just fine for 3,000 years, and out of nowhere, an earthquake wipes it out right when we're all here to see it. And we need the savior groups to go in there and stabilize the structure. It's unbelievable. And why is the US in Georgia's business, where we see an article that the US allocates grants for restoration of the Aplistica cave town, where that article is deleted? I wish they would have just brainwashed me with these incredible places. I would have been so much happier. So let's check this website out and see what's so important about it. Where the project to go help a rock site that has been there for thousands of years, just fine, without our help, costed the US taxpayer $200,000 to just monitor the territory of the ancient stone town. And we get confirmation, yet again, that they believe this place has been doing just fine for 3,000 years, until that 1920s earthquake, of course. What are the odds we all finally get here and can verify information, and out of nowhere, it gets its first attacking earthquake? And it's very interesting that we are shown that in 1920, the earthquake hit the Gori region, which we can see right here is west of this site that we are talking about. In fact, it's 5 miles west. This earthquake in 1920 did not even hit this location. So in my opinion, of course, something else happened to this site. Check these pictures out. This was clearly an old world palace, above and below the ground. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. After everything that we've shown in this region, do you think that these tunnel systems go under all of this land that we can see right here in the pictures, where this was all supposedly built by the people that don't make any money? And I'm not going to say that word again, as we've had an issue with it on one of the platforms. We are told that the people that weren't given any money in exchange for their efforts were given a pickaxe. They give us these children's stories over and over, and we just believed it for years. Where this time the pickaxes were supposedly covered in iron, and the other half covered with gold. Where once the people that worked for free, once they wore out that iron, they would earn their freedom and get a date with the princess, all given to us by Walt Disney and his friends. So can you believe this? Time and time again we see this, where the main part was unearthed, or in regular English terms, they just found it in 1956, and then yet again tell us all about its history from thousands of years ago. They just found it in 1956. So right in the middle of wine press and a bread bakery, they sneak the tunnels right into the sentence. It's amazing. Again, they know, supposedly, that this location's first downfall started from the 1st century. And in the late medieval period, this site was fully abandoned. Could you imagine waking up today, having a cup of coffee, and telling everybody about a site that was just found in 1956? Telling everybody all about what happened thousands of years ago. I'm sorry, but that sounds like someone that I don't trust at all. Someone that knows all about 3,000 years ago. Yeah, right. Nobody knows what happened 3,000 years ago at this location. We can only piece together what we see, and we can clearly see that there was a civilization here before us that held technology to create massive tunnel systems all over the world, multiple floors deep. And this is not done with a shovel or a pickaxe, like they keep telling us. Nobody that was born in 1985 knows exactly what happened between the 10th century BC until the first unification of the Kingdom of Georgia in the 5th century. These narratives are complete nonsense and based on zero factual evidence, or saying that more earthquakes took place, ruining 2/3 of the caves, damaging the halls that were used for sheltering cows. We already know that there weren't multiple earthquakes in this location. We proved this to be a lie. And in 1283 and 1088, who the heck had their notebook out, documenting earthquakes in this town? Who was designated as the earthquake bookkeeper, just sitting around waiting for their moment? The answer is that nobody was doing this. This is another site that I would love to explore, where we are told here at the bottom that it even has a secret escape tunnel. I'm sure there's more than just one. We all might need to send some of those tunnel hunting chickens in there from episode 84. What do you think? I found a really cool article on this place on sailingstonetravel.com showing us photos of some of these tunnels, with our civilization, of course, switching the stairs from stone to a much higher quality version of stair. The classic aluminum style stairs, adding in the new railing feature. You can clearly see the evolving and advancing right here. The last 3,000 years have given us an aluminum railing. Can you even imagine what the next 3,000 years will bring us? It's amazing to think about. There's so much evolving, so much advancing. So this guy thinks that creating massive tunnel systems 3,000 years ago must have taken an especially long time to carve out from the solid rock, where we all know, thanks to the experts at Florida State University, that this is very easy. All thanks to shovelsandspoons.com and people that don't make any money for their work. Check this place out. This arch is totally melted. This is not carved like this, and this is not done with a shovel or a pickaxe. They are smooth edges. They didn't sand it down. And you can also see that the inside had detailed stonework that looks like it's been washed away. So remember when we were all told that Derinkuyu in Turkey had thousands of miles of tunnels that connected to 200 cities? Well, only 556 miles away is this location that we are all exploring today. If you could remove the layer of dirt that we all stand on, I bet you would see that there are massive subterranean networks connecting all of these incredible sites all over the world that the previous civilization constructed. And in my opinion, after everything that we have seen to this point, I believe that this took place within the last few hundred years. A mass event took place that reset it all and destroyed the previous civilization's work. The tunnel systems from the previous civilization are so incredible. And don't forget that we were told that these are from 3,000 years ago, located in Georgia. Well, right next to Georgia, we have Azerbaijan, yet another location right next to Turkey, right next to Georgia, that holds massive tunnel systems, where we are told that the experts are trying to bring a 3,000-year-old underground aqueduct technology to the modern world. Yet again, we are told built with picks and shovels, where the ancient system is made up of a network of underground canals, some 200 meters below the desert's surface, with a series of well-like vertical shafts, just like we saw in Turkey. All over the world, we are shown these networks, and now we are told that massive tunnel systems hide right under the deserts. Can you even imagine what is really below all the sand? We have exposed the fire narrative right here on this channel. We have shown how the old world buildings, the previous civilizations work. Hold the fire narrative so many times. We have also shown how these fires are still happening today. We have built a massive team here, all of us. We are now able to expose these fires that are happening all around the world in real time, live, just like we did on July 11th, 2024. We have shown how these fires continuously happen while the structure is under some sort of restoration project, where we have also exposed that these so-called restoration projects are, of course, in my opinion, planned demolition projects or destruction projects. Over and over, where a fire breaks out in the spire of the French cathedral, just like we exposed live with the Copenhagen Stock Exchange or the Toronto Church. Same thing in Cleveland, where I'm just gonna let you know, we are all taking our power back. We are taking the truth back right now in real time. And if you didn't know this already, we are the news now, where we are told that the blaze erupted at the top of the spire of the Gothic Our Lady of the Assumption Cathedral, a cathedral that was, of course, currently undergoing restoration, and of course, considered a significant piece of French medieval architecture. Now, my question is, who started this fire? We are never told how these random fires begin. It's always a mystery, every single time. Even though we have cameras all over the place, every single person has a cell phone that has a camera on it, but nobody catches it on camera. Nobody's there to ever witness who started the fire to burn down a massive old world building. There should have been a witness, considering we are told that the cathedral was evacuated following the outbreak of the flames. So we had people in there, and every single person has a camera in their pocket. And we're being told that the fire broke out at the tip of the spire, which isn't even made of wood, but rather metal. So we have fires breaking out in old world buildings, fires that light metal on fire. These are deliberate attacks, in my opinion, on specific old world technology or information. I believe it is the spire, like we have shown, that still held free energy from the old world and was being destroyed in a destruction project taking place right in front of our faces. And then we get a mayor named Nicholas Mayer, where he tells us that the fire's origin is unknown at this point. Again, they never disclose this information, even though we all know that there were 4 people working on the spire, proving that this is a cover-up for these 4 individuals that were planted in this location to complete the destruction project. Again, this is all in my opinion, but it's based on the information that we are all told. Check out the front of this place. Could you even imagine the donkey power in the 1200s that it would have taken to get this place built? I mean, look at the architecture. It's incredible. And take a look at this picture. We have shown all over the world where they chop the heads off of these statues. We have even seen and shown how earthquakes chop the heads off of statues and send them rolling down the hill. Arms, legs, feet, and hands have never had an issue, but the heads of these statues from the old world are removed over and over. Why is this? Well, what if these heads show what the previous civilization actually looked like? What if they show a very different past than the one that we've all been told? I believe that this is exactly what's going on, where we see not one statue's head, but we have 5 statues' heads chopped off in this small section alone. Deliberate attacks on our history. Over and over. We see it all over the world. Again, even more incredible detail here at the top. And where did his head go? And what is that thing behind him? Could you even imagine one of these being constructed today? The structures that we were building in the 17 and 1800s do not line up with the mainstream narrative at all, where James Buchanan, the 15th president of the United States, was born in a shack. And he wasn't the only one. That the very next president was Abe Lincoln, who was also born in a shed, where it looks like his didn't even get color or steps to the front door. And I know both of them did not have a bathroom. They had to go outside for that. So let's remember, this is what's going on in the 17 and 1800s. This is where people were living. And then we go to this church's narrative. And after everything that we have seen, this should open some eyes. When the first church is believed to have been underneath the present cathedral. But we are, of course, not told, where we know here and have shown many times, what is underneath most of these old churches. Again, we are told multiple churches on the same site, which is another repeating narrative. Now, this narrative is taking us back to the year 395. 395 on the dot, where they built a large basilica. And it was, of course, supposedly built on the same exact site, where they waited 360 years to do anything. And then in the year 755, they construct several courtyards and buildings around the church, including a palace for the archbishop, all in the year 755. They were just busy constructing palaces. This is what we are told. And then they give us this ridiculous story that Vikings raided the place and damaged the cathedral, where this was documented in the Donkeys Inc. archives, a weekly magazine written by Feather Under Moonlight, just running around chasing that local duck to get his feathers, just so they could write it all down. This information that we read today, about the year 395, exactly 1,500 years before the power tool. This story is nonsense, telling us that they enlarged the cathedral in the year 650. They got a special guest in 769 with poetry night on Tuesdays. Now, a much more realistic narrative is that there was a previous civilization here, humans, that held incredible technology, everything that we have today, and so much more. A civilization that was constructing massive tunnel systems, going down 18 levels under our feet, and most likely more. A civilization that created palaces, matching their level of knowledge. The way that the mainstream narrative brushes things off without any evidence is ridiculous at this point. Acting like we should just believe that 200 years ago, people were primitive, riding around by donkey, dirt roads everywhere, presidents born in shacks with porta potties outside. And then 2,000 years ago, they just construct palaces that last forever. And we haven't even gotten to the best part. In 1822, right when we were all here to see, lightning started a fire that destroyed the spire of the central tower. The exact same spire that we just showed that was just randomly burning down. And nobody knows how it started. And in 1905, a new law made the cathedral property of the French government. It's very interesting. When it was bombed like 30 years later, twice, by Allied bombs. And then they tried to destroy it again 5 years later, when it was bombed 7 more times by the British. And then the USA just needed to get involved, of course. The US Army Air Force set fire to the tower. The bells melted. Very interesting. If you'd like me to cover the old world bells in the future, let me know. So this place is just fine until our civilization starts back up and they start going up there and melting bells and bombing the old world's work over and over. And then, of course, we know what they found underneath the church. When in 1985, excavations were carried out beneath the church and its surroundings. How incredible is it to know what these sentences really mean? Before this research, we would have looked at that sentence and been very confused, thinking it was maybe a one-off. But now we know that they did this all over the world, finding things, tunnels, structures, and catacombs, where it goes on to say that they uncovered vestiges of the earlier buildings, and foundations of another cathedral. And we all know that they found so much more. Possibly networks of tunnels, multiple floors, connecting all of the old world buildings in the area, and maybe even more. Underground living spaces, underground structures, catacombs, technology, gold, and so much more. And then, of course, we have the fire right here from July 11th, 2024. A tax, in my opinion, of the old world's work. Structures and buildings, sites that were meant for us, in my opinion. Places that were given to us that have since been taken over and destroyed by a group that seems to want to hide the past from us. A group that seems like they're on a strange mission that is fully focused on them gaining more and more control while giving us less and less. Who knows if that's true, but it sure looks like it is, if I'm being honest. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it feels like the movie The Lion King, where everything was great where they lived, with Mufasa in charge. The grass was green, they had peace. And then Scar took over, and the place just goes down the drain. A little season. Is this what the movie The Lion King is really telling us? Who knows? But after everything that we know, it doesn't seem too far off. And now they have our little doorway cut into the doors. Doors are constructed proportionate to the size of the individual using it. And I want to show you the inside of this place. The ceiling is incredible. Remember, there's never a mistake in the 795s. They were perfect every time. Withstanding bombs, fires, and the rest. So check this out. Here's the cathedral that we've been talking about today. And look right behind it. We have two more. This one on the left is currently undergoing its own destruction project, as we can see right here. Here it is without all the scaffolding around it. This is the Abbey Church, finding this place in 750. And this third church, right here on the right, finished in 1521. No issues in the construction. A masterpiece from the 14 and 1500s. And this one was the replacement, if you can believe it. We have Master Robin and an incredible area here in France. Honestly, it's terrible that these fires keep happening all over the world to these incredible structures. And nobody's ever held accountable for lighting them on fire. And they don't even tell us what company is in charge of these supposed restoration projects. Who is being hired to do these restoration projects?
Glenn Youngkin.
The governor of Virginia and lawmakers all agreed to remove the 15-story Pocahontas building, all to make way for a new courtroom. This entire area, this city of Richmond, Virginia, we produced an entire episode on this place. We know that this city is incredible, even to this day. We also have no idea how many old world buildings have already been destroyed in this location. This building is used as the General Assembly by the state of Virginia. Take a look at this picture. We have the building that is going to be torn down right here. And to the left, we have our civilization's construction. And then in the background, on the right, we have some sort of castle. So I'm gonna show you how fast, how quick. If you weren't watching, or if you were unaware of the previous civilization, you would have missed it. I'm going to show you just how fast our history is being destroyed. Are you ready? Here we go. Right here, we have the building from the old world. And if you just zoom out a little and click over to the left, you get an updated picture of this building. And it's now gone, showing just how fast they erased the buildings. This research is very important. We all need to see what's going on around us right now. And then they put this right in your face, if you can see it, with the sign saying Virginia History in the Making, telling us that they are creating a brand new history. So I went to the back of this place. This building right here on the left, the General Assembly / Pocahontas building, is now gone, like we just showed. And before we go to that castle building behind it, that is still there somehow for all of us to see, they are now exposing within these articles that a tunnel connecting the new building to the historic state capitol is still under construction, where the tunnel is going to be open to everybody, meaning the visiting public will be able to move freely between the two buildings inside the tunnel. Now, they say that it is under construction, where we all know here that they are just removing things, blocking off other tunnels that connected to this one, so that this is the only connection that we can all see when we all go down there. I'd still love to see this tunnel, since we all know that it is much older than we've been told. We can also see that they are busy at this location. This building is much bigger than we can see, going underground. We have shown this many times. And we all know that there is so much more activity going on below our feet. Multi-level tunnel systems. And they are not just hallways. We all know this now. This is the old City Hall, Richmond, Virginia. Before this research, did you know that nearly every city in the USA had Gothic Revival style palaces on nearly every single corner? Did you know that this building used to be bigger, holding even more buildings that were all demolished? A supposed first city hall, gone. The Edmund Randolph House, gone. A circa 1800 octagonal-ended house, gone. And the first Presbyterian church, supposedly moved. Just moving churches in the 1800s, no problem. And they can't forget to hold a design competition in 1883, because there were just so many architects in 1883. Everybody get your Gothic Revival style palace designs in by supper, and don't be late. And no power tools are allowed in the construction, because, well, they weren't invented yet. And check this out. And by 1915, the building was going out of style, telling us it was completed in 1894. And then it's going out of style in 1915. This is only 21 years. Can you believe this story? Pretending that donkey riding cowboys of the 1800s were just so picky about what style palace was in their town. So they tell us they proposed to demolish it after 21 years. And we all know that this building is older than that. But let's just keep reading their ridiculous story. All to create a mall. Well, that didn't work out, thankfully. But in the 1970s, demolition threats resurfaced. But instead, they destroyed it. Restored it in the early 1980s. What a weird narrative. It's all over the place. If you live in the area, I suggest going and giving that one a visit, since we know that its next door neighbor is no longer there. And have we found a group that's actually on our team? The building was saved from demolition by the historic Richmond Foundation. Here's their website, and we see the Pocahontas building on the main page. So let's read more, where the status is, well, not good. They need to update that status to gone. Take a look at the inside of the old City Hall. It's still there today. This is incredible. And one of my favorite parts about this research is finding the architect that they pinned to these buildings and exposing all of the structures in their narratives to all of you. Seeing that Elijah E. Myers is the character that was selected. And this is just the beginning, where historians suggest that Myers may have studied architecture. He might have studied architecture, maybe, but we will never know for sure. If he studied under Samuel Sloan before serving in the Civil War, and according to the experts, it will forever be a mystery. A fictional character? Well, you tell me. When he was supposedly buried and his grave was unmarked until 2009, when funds had to be raised to get a memorial erected, an unmarked grave until 2009. His grave says Myers Gilman, and this is just the start of revealing just how flawed the narrative really is. One of the buildings that was pinned to Mr. Myers was the Plymouth Christian Church, located in Lansing, Michigan. And this is what he supposedly built. And then take a look at our civilization's construction, showing that the evolving and advancing thing is not happening at all. Again, take a look at this thing. These kind of structures were everywhere and have since been destroyed to hide our true history. That a previous civilization was here. And in my opinion, within the last few hundred years, they were here. And they had technology, They were able to construct palaces over and over in every single country. So what happened to this structure from the old world? That building burned to the ground in 1971. Destruction of our past. Crowd watches as Lansing firemen battle noon hour blaze. As hundreds of spectators watched from the Capitol and federal building lawns early this afternoon, flames swept through the Plymouth Church. And here we go. Check this out. The structure had smoke coming out of every window and entrance as the pastor and the assistant pastor removed records and books from the church's office and adjoining building. It's very interesting. We've seen the same thing so many times, including in Minnesota. And look at this. The fireman who answered the multi-alarm fire indicated that the fire started in the basement area below the organ loft. This area reportedly was used by organizations, and it was not a storage area. Catacombs, tunnels, right underneath the church. We've all seen this. We know this. The church was located right across the street from the Capitol building, surely connecting underground. Very interesting accounts of the fire. Again, even in the 1970s, they still didn't tell us exactly how these fires started, proving that this has been in operation for a very long time. Planned demolitions, in my opinion, removing the old world from our view while keeping the underground the same. So this Elijah E. Myers character is very interesting. He was also pinned to the First Presbyterian Church, building it in 1858. And of course, it burned down in 1873, just 15 years later. There's no photos of that one, of course. And then check this sign out in front of the current church. The first one was built, burned in 1873. Myers gets another one done, no problem at all. Finished in 1879. 4 years later, 1883. Fire again destroyed the church. Repetition is the key. These narratives are in every single country, every town. The fire narrative is the nod to knowing which buildings are from the old world. We have proven this hundreds of times already. The Seneca County Courthouse, Tiffin, Ohio, completed in 1886 by Myers yet again. And look at our civilization go. Look at that upgrade on the top. It's disgusting. In 2007, this building was ultimately demolished due to years of neglect. So they built this one instead. Can you see the comparison side by side? And then what is this? What is this? The new courthouse has a 2017 Masonic cornerstone, which the individual who wrote the article found unusual. So I'm gonna ask, do you find that unusual? Let me know in the comments. Good old Seneca County. Okay, so we have shown some of Elijah Myers' buildings that have been destroyed. So let's show some buildings that are still here as of 2024, so that anybody in the area can still go and see them for now. Knox County Courthouse, Galesburg, Illinois. What is that old world technology at the top? Oh, wait, I mean flagpole. What an odd story that we are told. The cornerstone was laid in 1885 when the members of the Masonic order carried out the dedication of large new buildings. And to open up the cornerstones, take the valuable items that were inside of them that were put there from the previous civilization. Wait. I mean, lay their cornerstones. The Grand Lodge of Illinois Masons, as well as representatives from 43 Masonic lodges across the state, all came to get the items out of that cornerstone of the Knox County Courthouse. And of course, I have no idea why I keep saying that. To dedicate the cornerstone. Right. Everything sounds great so far with this narrative. Any objections? Let me know if you got any. So they tell us that they chose an architect who had experience designing public buildings. His name was, of course, Elijah E. Myers, the man of the hour. Multiple buildings now connected to this same group that likes to put their stamp on old world buildings. Myers, of course, promises that their building would be Fire safe. Fire safe, are you kidding me? Why didn't they just make all the buildings fire safe? Well, they didn't. And if they had that technology, they would have done it all over the place. The thing is that none of them were fire safe. This is a nod, 100%. And check this out. He was also pinned to these 6 structures. 5 of them are either destroyed or altered, removing the dome. Why remove the dome? Old world technology. Demolishing insane asylums in the year 2000 because, well, episode 52. Myers is pinned to 31 structures in multiple states, asylums in Mexico, parliament buildings in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and the rest. All of this happening before the year 1895, the first electric power tool. The Brazilian parliament building in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, that he was pinned to, is now demolished. It's absolutely insane. It looks a little founded to me. What do you think? There are so many buildings in the USA that look so out of place. Structures that we can all go and see. Structures that we have shown are being burned down and destroyed over and over. These are the structures that we have proven on this channel that hold narratives, stories that are clearly written by either a group of people thinking that we are all too dumb to realize that the stories are made up, or they're written by an AI. When you simply look at one building's narrative, you would never notice anything. But when you put hundreds of them together, like we have done here, we all see the patterns, the repetition, the dates, and the rest, all of it. That's going to take the narrative and expose it to the world, showing that these buildings have a much deeper history, showing that the true narrative is that these buildings have all been here much longer than we've all been told, and built by a much more advanced group of people than the donkey-riding cowboys of the 1800s. So, let's get started. In Mansfield, Ohio, located on 60 South Mulberry Street, we have the St. Peter's Church, where we are told that the first Catholic Mass was celebrated in Mansfield in 1850. Shortly after, Mansfield's Catholic community purchased its first building, a church that was already there. A former Methodist church, and this is where things get very interesting and give it all away, where the parish built its first church in 1870, where it, of course, burned down just 19 years later. And this is very important for anybody new here. We can see with our eyes which buildings look out of place. Buildings that don't belong in the USA, if you were going off the mainstream narrative. Where people, including presidents, were being born in sheds with no bathrooms. Yet, at the same exact time, there are palaces being thrown together right across the street, no problem at all. Over and over, by architects that have no previous training. And there's never a mistake. And then we see nearly every single time this palace-like structure holds the fire narrative, which is a clear pattern, a nod. And we, of course, don't stop there. This is just the beginning of the investigation. Because once we see the fire, then we can go deeper. And we see that they built another building right across the street, supposedly. No details on the construction of that one, of course. And then they outgrow it. And this is when the narrative gets exposed. When they tell us that the current structure, the one that's there today, had its cornerstone laid on May 14th, 1911. And due to the First World War, it had delays. And 113 years ago, it only took them 6 years to build this during a world war, which took place between 1914 and 1918, where 2.8 million men from the USA alone were drafted to go to Europe. And another 2 million men volunteered. With all of this going on, millions of men off fighting in a world war, this structure still gets done in just 6 years. These are the times when the narrative slips these buildings in, when there's a world war going on. And we have shown this where major financial market crashes and wars are the perfect time to throw brand new narratives into existing buildings. We have shown this in New York City in episode 77, with no internet, and everybody's distracted with the major event going on in the world at that point. Who is running to the library to go check these buildings' narratives? Who's doing that? The answer is nobody. Nobody is going to the library and checking these narratives. This is the perfect time to switch up the story. And now it's time to take this even further when we see that the architect was supposedly William P. Ginther. His architectural career starts off all because he reportedly drew a comic Valentine for a girl, where Frank Weary, then Akron, Ohio's leading architect, just happened to be in the room. And he saw this comic Valentine. So he hires him based on this comic Valentine, if you can believe it. This is the story that we're given. This is the beginning of his story. So we already know this story is ridiculous. Why was this Frank just following him around? Just waiting for the perfect opportunity to see him drawing something and hiring someone based on a comic Valentine and then turning them into a master architect. This is a very standard practice back then. Yes, your Valentine comic is perfect and I just happened to be behind you when you were drawing it. Now come with me. And I always love looking into these characters because they pin them as the guy who created so many other old world palaces all over the place. Just like we see here. 45 churches in Ohio alone, 18 other churches in other states, 10 residences, 28 schools, 8 academies, and even 3 hospitals. And you can see that these were no comic sketches. Take a look at this building, including the Basilica of St. Andrew in Virginia, where it was thrown together in just 24 months, as the legend goes. He's also pinned to this one, the Immaculate Heart of Mary Church, located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let's see how long this one took to build. If they just would have told us like 8 to 10 years, then fine. I would have a hard time having any argument at all. But the problem is that they tell us the cornerstone was laid in July 1904 and completed in 1905. So the whole thing is just done. This is a massive flaw in the narrative. We have proved, in my opinion, of course, in episode 41, that this timeline would have been impossible. Nobody is constructing anything like this in a year from 1904 to 1905, especially when we were told that William P. Ginther, the supposed architect, was off building 109 other structures around the USA. 1 year, 120 years ago. Are you sure? So 1904 and 1905, William P. Ginther should have been overseeing his comic masterpiece, getting the thing done in like a year, perfectly. Well, instead of being in Pittsburgh, he was back in Ohio, building this church the same exact year. Now, I'm not saying that this guy wasn't real. I'm simply suggesting that he was used as a pawn and placed into these narratives, used as the front guy to explain away 109 structures in the USA that did not resemble the construction at the time. You know, the classic wooden shed style. I'm going to take this a step further and try to blow your mind. We were told that Ginther was pinned as the guy that got the St. Columbia Church done, where we were told that it was destroyed by a fire in 1954. So I found it. And just take a look at this place. And it's no wonder it was destroyed. This did not belong in Youngstown, Ohio. It did not fit into the narrative at all. And you can see that the skies are all blanked out in these pictures, clearly edited. You can't even see the top of the structure here. And check this one out. Look at the pole. It's so over the top and 100% doesn't fit in with what we are all told about the past. Here's a photo of inside the place. It's just incredible. I know we have located the fire narrative now, and we are all witnessing them happening live today. But I always think, what have we missed over the years? Could you even imagine growing up in 1890? Every single building on the block must have been insane. In my opinion, nobody from our civilization built this. I believe there was a massive civilization here, where we all live today, that were not riding around on donkeys and carriages. I believe they were wiped out by a mass event, and everything was reset back to the horse and wagon era. And this is why all of these buildings are so out of place and need to be demolished, so that the narrative that we're all told makes total sense. And now I'm going to show you the comparison to what was given to us by the comic guy and what we are given today. I think this comparison right here is just shocking. To me, it's undeniable proof that we are not moving forward. We are not advancing. This is clear proof, in my opinion, that there was a group here that fully understood how to construct palaces all over the world. There is something massive missing from our textbooks. What we are told does not make sense at all. It's just incredible. I could look at the comparisons from the old world to our world all day long. It couldn't get any more obvious that the history that we are given is not the truth, at least in my eyes. So let's go even deeper. According to CatholicEcho.org, we are told that nearly 70 years ago, the cathedral was destroyed by fire during a late evening storm, because storms just light any random stone building on fire. No. So we can see when we are all here to document what is going on. This takes 4 years to put a new one together. We have seen so many times that the 1800s would burn a building down and 4 months later, the new one is there. No problem at all. So I'm so glad that they're showing us the truth in this article, that you have to account for the old building's demolition project, the one that was destroyed. It takes time to remove these ones and then put the new one in. On stcolumbacathedral.org, we get a backstory that gives even more away, where they tell us that this church that burned down was not even the original, if you can believe it. Where the first building was erected in 1853, a second church was built in 1868, and then a larger one in 1897. So who constructed these previous churches? How long did they take to build? Where did the materials come from? Which donkey led the way? We will never know, of course. So this one that is here today, we are all told, is the fourth church on this site. Again, another pattern in the narrative. And we're just getting started on William P. Ginther, the comic drawing master architect, when we have found another comparison of what he supposedly drew up and got done and what is there today. The Holy Name Cathedral, located in Ohio, was found in 1885. And take a look at this place. We are told that they destroyed it and changed it in 1957. Take a look at this. It looks like a completely different building. What do you think? It looks like they just knocked the old one down and built this one. And it looks terrible now, in comparison, if we're just being honest. And I want to show you something pretty interesting. Right here, within the database, we see that there are buildings that we will never find a photo of from the past, where this Sharadsville, Sacred Thirst, in Carroll County, was supposedly destroyed by a thunderstorm. It was found in 1883 and destroyed in 1899 or 1900. One of the two, but they can't seem to remember, of course. And then rebuilt in a year and renamed. And we've seen this so many times, where they rename it to mix the narrative up so that you'll never find it again. Same thing here. Destroyed in 1838 by fire, where they changed the name again to Saint Michael, the Archangel. Again, in Athens County, found in 1845, destroyed by fire. Neph's Sacred Heart, found in 1905, destroyed 5 years later by a tornado. So let's get back to William P. Ginther, because there's more. According to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission, I have found his building list, and I have found the dates that they were supposedly constructed. And I have also found that the St. Mary Catholic Church that is pinned to his name, reminder, It's a church. And this is now the second time in our research that we have seen a church located at 666 South Main Street, Akron, Ohio. What an interesting address for a church. In 1888, we are told that he begins knocking out palace-like structures. St. Bernard's School, where we were told it was in 1888, and now the narrative has messed up and exposed itself. 1888 in the government documents, where we have located a postcard stating that construction began in 1902, with the architect being William P. Ginther. And this was his first project, a massive structure in 1888. His first 5 projects are demolished, and he knocked 3 buildings out in his first 2 years, which is ridiculous in itself. And I'm going to show you these structures that are still standing, that are pinned to this William P. Ginther guy. St. Mary, Mother of the Redeemer Church, located in Norwalk, Ohio. And here's its cornerstone. Do you think they've already opened that thing up? I bet that isn't the original cornerstone, if I had to take a guess, based on things that we've seen in recent episodes. Here's the inside at night. And here it is on the outside. Take a look at that cornerstone. We can see that it's a completely different color from the rest of the building. I'm gonna take a guess. They definitely opened that thing up. And then threw that 1889 date right on the side. It's unbelievable. It's incredible when you know what to look for. We can all spot it right away now. And it looks like they've been busy knocking things down at this site as well in 2008. So we all know how important it is to go and see these sites, as they are just destroying them over and over. And that's why this research is so important, making sure that everybody is aware of these buildings, going and seeing them for yourself, and understanding that they all hold a much different past than what we are told. And these structures completely expose the mainstream history. And they know this. We need everybody to understand this so that all the fire and the demolition projects stop. So now we have confirmation that he was busy constructing 10 different palace-like structures in the year of 1905 alone. Can you believe this? Let's check these things out. St. Bernard Church. This is insane. Take a look at the inside of this one. William P. Ginther. What a guy. And what have we found here? A massive moment for this research. Another confirmation that this cornerstone was opened, blessed, and rededicated by Bishop Anthony Pilla in June of 2002. Can you believe this? It's obvious that the cornerstone, the first stone placed in construction, is not the stone that is pictured here. And this is just telling us that they located the actual stone and removed what was inside of it. Can you believe that they actually made a plaque to tell all of us that they did this in 2002? This is incredible. If anybody has any valuable information on the cornerstones and what is inside of them, please let me know. What are they removing from inside of these cornerstones over and over? So the same year, 1905, we have the St. Bernard's Rectory. Looks like these two are attached to each other. Another incredible structure where this thing definitely goes underground level. It looks like a castle. Same year, 1905, we have the St. Michael's Church. Can you believe that we're told that this is all in the same year, 1905? Palace after palace. St. Joseph's Church, another castle church with a perfect side-by-side comparison with our perfect upgraded plastic siding versus the old world. And then he had to hop on his Model T and construct the St. Mary Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. Take a look at our ramp, how it goes up sometimes and stays flat other times, with those wooden support beams. And then there's a massive palace church that looks like it's straight out of Walt Disney's dreams. Next, we have the Immaculate Heart of Mary, where we can see how nice our civilization treats their things. Located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm gonna drop the guy down here and show you this place. Remember, all in 1905. And I'm gonna go around the corner here so you can see what this Ginther guy is pinned to. And here it is, the Immaculate Heart of Mary Church. The place that we began this episode off with is unbelievable. And at the same time, he was off being distracted by the St. Anne Catholic Church in Erie, Pennsylvania. And this thing is straight out of Tartaria.com. Can you believe that these things were all being thrown together at the same exact time, the same year, by the same guy? Yeah, me either. I'd love to see this one in person. Check this picture out. This building is incredible. Did we just find another narrative slip up? When you lie, it's tough to keep your story straight. When we're told that this church was constructed in 1905, what's going on here where the church's website is telling us that it was established in 1894, predating this 1905 date by 9 years? All of this information has been sitting right here for everyone to see. All we had to do was look. And now that we have, we will never be able to unsee these lies, these patterns. There's no going back, especially when we see the next two structures, pinned to Ginther, were demolished. The St. Anne Roman Catholic Orphanage, because we know they didn't need those anymore. Episode 52. And the St. Vincent de Paul Orphan Asylum. Again, episode 52. Both in Cleveland, Ohio, with the second one demolished in 2007. Now, it's one thing to say that all of these buildings was a career's worth of construction. But to say that these buildings, all of them, were all built in a single summer fling, just throwing palace after palace after palace together in multiple states, 119 years ago, all in the same year. This is not logical, and we all need to realize this now. We are told that between 1902 and 1907, 5 years, that William P. Ginther was busy constructing a total of 50 palace-like structures. And so I'm going to ask you again, do you think that he constructed 50 palaces in just 5 years? Are we sure that what we've all been told in the storybooks isn't just a lie?